And again, thank you, communications people. Thank you, thank you.
I need a motion.
Okay.
Everyone rise, please. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. This Honorable General Court of Justice for the State of North Carolina, Superior Court for the County of Cumberland, is now open and sitting for the dispatch of its business. The Honorable James Floyd Ammons Jr., Judge, President presiding. God save the state and this honorable court. Please be seated.
All right, let me welcome everybody here. Apologize for the late start. I was sentencing a defendant in a first-degree murder case. Part of the price that we have to pay for using these facilities is that we have to handle the real cases first. Where's my beverage?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Thank you. That's better. Thank you. All right. That's good. Where are their juror badges?
I don't know, Your Honor.
All right, before we get started, where are their pencils? All right, I want you to be able to take good notes. And remember, these are pencils made for people who make twice as many mistakes as regular people. All right. All right, now that we've had a little bit of levity, I want you to know that each of you should relax, take a deep breath. This is not about life and death. It's simply about whether you will graduate or not graduate. All right. All right, Madam Clerk, our first case for today is Fair versus Palatech, is that right? All right. If the parties would identify themselves.
My name is Nick Croner. I'm the lead attorney for the plaintiffs. This is Megan Jones and Brandon Brown, and we are representing Fair.
All right, wait a second. Nick
Croner.
Megan
Jones.
and
Brandon Brown.
is it Brandon
Yes, sir.
Brown? Are y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Where's your plaintiff?
First witness.
Okay. And who is the plaintiff?
Devin Jackson.
Okay. And what is Mr. Jackson's relationship to Fair?
He's the founder of Fair.
All right, what says the defense? I don't know. Who's the lead counsel?
Your Honor, I'll be the lead counsel. My name is Stephanie Buffalo. And I also have Dylan Cox and Mr. Petros Bien,
How do you spell that?
B-E-I-N.
First name.
Oh, Petros, I'm sorry, Your Honor, P-E-T-R-O-S.
And where's your defendant?
Our defendant is Paleotech, the company of Paleotech. The president we have here, Cameron Chen, is the president of
Okay.
Paleotech, but we're representing the company.
All right. And what type of action is this?
For an injunction to stop, for injunction for the for Paleotech to stop emitting high levels of emissions and for them to not receive the new tradable permits.
Okay. Both sides ready for opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lawyers are going to give you an opening statement at this time. It's just a forecast of what they believe the evidence will be. It is not evidence in this case. The evidence will come in the form of testimony of the witnesses and exhibits. This is merely an outline. All right, what says the plaintiff? And for the record, just identify yourself again.
My name is Megan Jones. Today in America, roughly 30 million people have asthma. Over half the nation's population live in areas with bad or polluted air. African American and Latino children are more likely to suffer from an asthma attack than white children. African Americans are 5 times more likely to live within walking distance of a power plant than Caucasians. And today, more often, power plants are being built in neighborhoods depending on race and income in that area. It's a thing called environmental justice. And we think that the people in neighborhoods like these areas deserve it. Ironically, Workville, the neighborhood inside of Hazy Valley, North Carolina, consists of it has a population that consists of 75% of African American or minority groups. We don't think that this is a coincidence. The plaintiff today, we are going to present to you a father who has to watch his children struggle to breathe on a daily basis, telling his son that a football dream, playing football may be a thing of the past. And that same father, who you heard earlier, is the founder of FAIR, a local environmental group that they started within the community, himself and other parents. It stands for Fresh Air is a Right, which they believe. We also will hear from a former EPA worker who decided to choose his morals over a paycheck. Dr. Morgan Williams, who has been studying the effects of urban air pollution and conducting surveys within Workville and Hazy Valley. And we will also lastly hear from an environmental health professor, Dr. Alex Martinez, who has been collecting air samples within the Workville and Hazy Valley neighborhood for some time. We will present you with evidence that clearly shows that the defendant, Paleotech, has violated their Clean Air Act permit. However, they will try to persuade you otherwise. By the end of today, we will show you that innocent lives, daily routines, children's futures, and parents' dreams are all being impacted slowly but surely by the air pollution coming from the negligence of the defendant, Paleotech. I would like to thank you all personally on my behalf and the behalf of the plaintiff attorneys and the defense for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. Thank you.
Okay, what says the defense?
May it please the court, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Air is everywhere. Harmful cigarette smoke from tobacco exhaled into the air is everywhere. Harsh toxins from cleaning agents, chemicals from cleaning agents emitted into the air everywhere. Tiny dust particles from wind-blown areas lightly floating in the air everywhere. Strong exhaust fumes from vehicles in the air everywhere. Air is everywhere. Now these are just 4 examples of some of the toxic air pollutants that can be emitted into the air. However, you did not hear anything coming from a coal-fired power plant. Now yes, Paleotech does emit safe levels of air pollution into the air. However, that is for the purpose of providing electricity to thousands of homes within the neighborhood. So by no means is Paleotech a nuisance to these families. Paleotech is a very important member of the community. They provide numerous and major contributions to the neighborhood of Hazy Valley. They support all of the local schools. They provide donations and contributions to the local homeless shelters. They help out with creating local parks. They do more than what is appropriate for them to do. Paleotech employs the majority of the workers within Hazy Valley. Almost 20% come from the local workforce. Now, I'm sorry. You asked, what are we here for?
Take your time.
Okay. All of this is threatened now because Paleotech finds themselves being accused of being a nuisance to the community of Hazy Valley, along with violating their Clean Air Act permit. Now, excuse me. Okay, but accusations are not evidence. And the judge will instruct you that the plaintiff must prove the elements of their claims by the preponderance of the evidence. What will the evidence show? The evidence will show you that Hazy Valley has had major air quality pollution problems for decades now. Hazy Valley is a non-attainment area that for 4 pollutants under the Clean Air Act. The testimony of Dr. Casey David will be that because the weather and geographical patterns within the area, much of the pollution of Hazy Valley experiences drifts in from other parts of the state. As well as that only 25% of the pollutants actually come from within Hazy Valley. With half of that fraction, half of that percentage come from the vehicles and other human sources of that pollution. You will also hear the evidence will show that Hazy Valley does in fact have higher levels of asthma, bronchitis, respiratory diseases, and other parts of the state. The testimony of Drew Fuentes is going to show that the residents' homes have significantly higher levels of mold, allergens, and cigarette smoke than did other residents throughout the state. Now, Paleotech, you were going to hear from the president of Paleotech along with the chief pollution control officer, and they will testify that Paleotech is a very professional, very well-managed company with competent supervisors. I ask you that you sift through the evidence carefully and to find the precise evidence that allows you to return a verdict in Paleotech's favor. Thank you.
All right, call your first witness.
We'd like to call Devin Jackson to the stand, Your Honor.
Now raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. Will you please state your name for the record?
Devin Jackson.
And where do you live, Mr. Jackson?
I live in the Workville section of Hazy Valley, 245 south of their street.
And how long have you lived in Workville?
I lived there all my life.
And as of right now, how many of your neighbors are of a minority group?
The majority of the neighborhood is minorities.
Okay. Do you remember what year Paleotech was built?
Paleotech was built in the 1980s.
Okay. Do you remember Workville before Paleotech built there?
Yeah, yes, I do. Workville was a very nice neighborhood to live in. We had good quality air. You could step out of your porch and be able to see the other side of town. And these days, with since Paleotech moved in, it's all a haze. I mean, the air quality there has gone down considerably.
Do you live close to Paleotech?
Yes.
How close?
I live like 5 blocks from it.
Okay. So you grew up in Workville, correct?
Correct.
And how old were you when Paleotech built there? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was in my teens when they came. I was
Okay.
born in '67.
And how many, growing up, how many of your neighbors or friends were of a minority group?
The majority of my neighbors and friends are minorities. It's a
It hasn't
working
changed.
class neighborhood. You know, we just live paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, are you married?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and do you have kids?
Yes, I do.
And how old are they?
I got a boy, Michael. He's 12. My daughter, Shayna, is 9.
Okay, and are you currently employed?
Yes, I work for Food Lion.
Okay, and how long have you worked there?
I've worked there all my life. I started high school as a bagger and worked myself up.
Okay. And what is your current title at Food One?
I'm the store manager right
And how much do you make a year at Food One?
Before taxes, I make about 60,000.
And do you have health insurance through your job?
Yes, it gets deducted off the paycheck. I have a Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay. And does your family own any pets?
No, we don't own any pets.
Have they ever owned any pets?
No, we haven't.
Okay. Do you smoke?
No, I don't.
Does your wife smoke?
No, she doesn't.
Have you ever smoked?
No.
Do you and your wife keep your home clean?
Yes, my wife is a clean freak. I mean, she keeps the place pretty spotless.
In your family, has anyone recently been diagnosed with asthma?
Yes, my son. My daughter was recently diagnosed after my son.
And who diagnosed him?
The pediatrician, Dr. Brown.
And is okay. Do you have asthma?
No,
Does your wife have asthma?
no, she doesn't.
And does asthma typically run in your family?
No, it doesn't.
When were your children diagnosed with asthma?
Shayna was diagnosed in 2007, age 3, and Michael was diagnosed in 2005 at age 4.
And they've always lived in Workville, correct?
Yes.
Are you the founder of FAIR?
Yes, I
And what does FAIR stand for?
am. Fresh Air is a Right. We're environmental advocacy group.
And why did you start FAIR?
I started FAIR because after Shayna got diagnosed with asthma, Dr. Brown told me there was a high number of kids and other adults with respiratory problems in Workville. And I went to the school, talked to some other parents at the school as well, who told me their kids also suffer from respiratory issues. And, we just were concerned that basically we have this company over here that puts out an extraordinary amount of pollutants, and us as the little guys, our voices are not heard. So we decided to get together, start this nonprofit group just to get our voice out there and say, look, we're concerned and we need this issue to be looked at, because I like to breathe clean air, and I'm sure everybody else does.
Have you ever gotten in touch with the North Carolina EPA?
Yes, I have.
And when did you contact them?
I contacted them in late 2007 at the advice of a couple of scientists that were in the neighborhood taking air samples. They were from the university, and they came down and were collecting samples for some studies. And I found out about them, so I went and approached them and told them our concerns as parents, and they advised us to go and contact the EPA.
And who did you contact at the EPA?
Contacted their quality assurance people.
And what did they have to say to you?
Basically, they thought I was, just crazy, that they said there were no issues in my neighborhood, and, there was nothing that they were going to do about it, because according to them, everything was good to go.
And then at that time, what did you decide to do?
Well, at that time, I didn't take their word for it, obviously, because I, lived there all my life and wake up every day and see that smoke coming out of that smokestack. So I decided to, along with the other members of FAIR, to hold some press conferences, get the media involved, and I guess that brought the issue to light and put some pressure on the EPA, so they went ahead and changed their position and put an investigator to look into this matter.
So the EPA, you said that the EPA sent an investigator,
Yes.
and who was that?
C.J. Lee?
And what did CJ Lee do? Did he?
Well, C.J. Lee investigated whether or not Paleotech was abiding by the law as far as how much they could put out in the factory as far as pollutants and stuff like that. And even though I received a letter from the EPA after the investigation was done saying that they found nothing wrong with Paleotech, I got a call from C.J. Lee about a week after that saying that the letter I had received from the EPA was a lie, that it was a cover-up, and that's why we're here today.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may cross.
So you said you were a young teenager when Paleotech came to Workville, correct?
Right.
Do you find it strange that you and your wife never had any respiratory problems or asthma, yet you have lived in Hazy Valley for a much longer period of time than your children?
Yeah, I find it kind of odd, yeah.
Okay, you have 2 children, correct?
Right.
And they're both diagnosed with asthma?
Yes.
Okay. Have your children had any asthma attacks at school?
Yes.
And I guess at home as well?
Yes.
Okay, have more of those attacks occurred indoors or outdoors?
Mostly outdoors.
Have some occurred indoors?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Are your children physically active?
Yes, very much.
What kind of sports or other activities do they do?
My son's in the football team. He's been playing football ever since he could play.
And what about your daughter?
She just plays around with other kids.
Okay. How old is the house that you and your family currently live in?
We built it in the 70s.
Have you done any renovations to a house that's rather old with today's standards?
Just do regular painting, and we had the roof replaced. I got metal roof now.
Okay, when you say painting, was that mostly indoors or outdoor?
Mostly outdoors.
Okay. Have you had any flooding or water damage from pipes or storms, anything like that to your home?
Not from storms.
Leaking pipes or any plumbing like that? Did you have any kind of water damage from those?
Just in the bathroom, maybe once or twice it got clogged up. Just the regular stuff.
Have you ever had any mold in your house that you know of?
No.
Okay. What kind of floors do you have in your home?
I got wood flooring.
Is it all wood flooring throughout the entire house? Or is there...
Except for the kitchen and the bathroom is tiles.
Do you hire cleaning professionals to clean your home?
No, my wife does that.
What kind of cleaning agents does she use?
She uses non-toxic, eco-friendly type cleaners now.
Okay. Do you or your wife ever use any kind of air fresheners or any other kind of sprays that use aerosol?
Air fresheners, yeah, I'm sure we use the air wick and stuff like that.
You said you don't have any pets at home.
No.
Have you ever had any pets?
No.
Okay. Do your children ever sleep over at relatives' homes or friends' homes?
They do sleepovers once in a while with their friends.
Can you just define once in a while? Like, what do you mean by that?
I don't know, maybe once every couple months. Not that often. My wife is, pretty protective of them.
Do any of these people smoke in their homes or have pets in their home that you know of?
Oh, I have no idea.
Is it true that many people in Workville do smoke and that they do not exercise as much as they should?
I mean, I kind of mind my own business, I get up, go to work, come back home. I mean, I see people out on the street, sometimes they're smoking, sometimes they're not.
Is it true that in your affidavit you did state that many people in Workville do in fact smoke and do not exercise as often as they probably should?
Is it true that I said that on my affidavit?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Isn't it also true that you said that many people in Workville do not clean their homes as good as you and your wife?
Well, I was just trying to give my wife some props, She's a pretty good cleaner.
But you also said that many of the landlords in Workville let their buildings fall apart and become infested by roaches and rats. Did you not in fact say that?
Say that again?
You said that many of the landlords in Workville let their buildings fall apart and become infested with roaches and rats. Is that true?
It's a poor neighborhood. I mean, yeah, there are houses that have issues over there, but, we still got a right to breathe clean air.
Okay. And for how long now has the air pollution and air quality bothered you in Hazy Valley?
Well, when Paleotech first came in, it seemed fine, but as the years progressed, I noticed that the air quality, went down. And nowadays it's really bad. I mean, even my eyes get a little watery sometimes from being outside too long.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Not this time, Your Honor.
This would be the time.
Well, no, Your Honor.
Next time you come down, please be careful. Call your next witness.
We'd like CJ Lee to come to the stand, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated.
All right. Please say your name for the record.
CJ Lee,
What is your address?
125 Shattuck Drive, Hazy Valley.
Okay. What is your current occupation?
I'm currently unemployed.
Okay. What was your previous job?
I worked for the EPA. I was a investigator for the EPA, going out and investigating pollution control, things like that.
Okay. How long did you work there?
20 years.
And what was your main duty working for the EPA?
I was actually an investigator that went out when we do periodic investigations, and we'll do an investigation when we think that there might be a problem or when something's brought to our attention. So I was actually the guy that goes out and does the investigation, that does the checks.
Okay. Why are you here today?
Because I was actually the investigator that investigated Paleotech when the EPA was called out.
And why did you investigate Paleotech?
I was told to by basically by my boss. There was FAIR was causing some waves in the media and TV, and I think that's mainly what led to it.
How did you conduct your investigation?
Every coal-fired power plant has to have online systems to control or to monitor their emissions. And so I took one of the same type of equipment that they use, the Cal 2000 base system, plugged it into their sensors, and ran my checks from that.
Okay. And what did you find?
That they were over their permit limits, that they were in fact emitting more than what they should.
Okay. This time, Your Honor, I'd like to approach the witness.
You may do so.
Thank you.
This one here.
Yep.
You can.
This is the same one. you identify that
You can
document?
give that one to the judge.
Yes, I can. This is, every so often, as I said, the power plants have to monitor their own emissions and they have to submit a report to the EPA.
Hold on just a second.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
What are we handing to the jury?
So skipping ahead.
All right, for the record, how's the document labeled?
Official.
Exhibit 1, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Y'all got a copy of it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Okay, what did?
You may proceed.
Can you identify the document, sir?
Yes, I can. This is actually what is submitted by Paleotech to the EPA. This particular copy that you gave me was not submitted, but it is one that I saw laying on the desk of Terry Payne and brought it to their attention that this didn't match my figures that I got when I did the investigation.
Okay, this one wasn't sent to the EPA though, you just found it, correct?
No, I did. It was not sent to the EPA. It was laying on the desk. It was already signed though, and looked like it was ready to go.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Plaintiff's Exhibit Number 1 as evidence.
What says the defense?
That's fine, Your Honor.
No objection?
No objection.
And I'd like to publish to the jury as well.
All right, may give a second.
May I approach the witness again?
Sure.
She's fine.
Here we go. This is Plaintiff's Exhibit Number 2. Can you identify this document?
Yes, I can. This is actually the readings that I took when I went and did my investigation on their emissions. These are the actual readings that I got from my equipment.
And according to their permit, what are these? Are these more or less than the allowed amount?
They're more than the allowed amount under the permit.
They're what? I'm sorry.
They are more
They are more.
than they are allowed by the permit.
Okay.
We have to mark every single one. We did mark it.
We're in technical problems.
Which one? Right here.
I'd like to approach the witnesses one more
Alright.
time. This is Plaintiff's Exhibit number 5. I don't think that is number 3. Can you identify this document, sir?
Yes, I can. This is actually a copy of Paleotech's permit to emit emissions or to emit pollution from their facility.
Okay, and so with that being said, can you read Section 3, lines 1 through 5?
The following
What did I
limitations.
say? Any objection to him reading a document that's not been admitted?
Yes.
Okay, well, at this time, I'd like to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit number 5 into evidence, Your Honor.
Madam Clerk, what's been admitted?
I think 1 and 5, this one.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, Plaintiff's Exhibit 2.
My record shows that
Plaintiff's Exhibit 5.
we've had identified 1, 2, and 5, offered 1 and 5, admitted 1. I haven't ruled on 5 yet. I don't have 5. Do you have 5?
Yes, sir, I did.
You did not tell me that you were doing it.
You have a copy for the court? Have y'all looked at 5?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you have an objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, I would like to admit that in evidence.
All right, 5 is in.
May I publish it to the jury as well? All right. Can you now read section 3, lines 1 through 5?
Yes, I can. The following limitations apply to the facility unless elsewhere covered by a more restrictive requirement. Number 1, no person shall cause or permit the discharge of emissions such that industry ambient air quality standards are exceeded on land outside the permitted facility. Number 2, no particulate emissions from any fuel burning equipment shall exceed 0.6 MBTU, pounds per million British thermal units. Number 3, no sulfur dioxide emissions shall exceed 0.2 MBTU. Number 4, no nitrogen dioxide emissions shall exceed 0.4 MMBTU. Number 5, the plant shall comply with all best available control technology requirements, including installing and maintaining the most up-to-date air scrubbers.
Okay. And with all that being said, can you refer back to exhibit number 2? And what were your numbers that you found?
Sorry, I don't have exhibit number 2.
Sorry.
Okay, the numbers that I actually found in particulate matter.
Any objection to number 2? He's not introducing evidence. He's
No objection.
We'd like to introduce exhibit number 2 into evidence.
To offer it into evidence?
Yes.
No objection. Okay.
And we'd like to publish it to the jury as well.
We'll do so.
All right, yeah. So now, can you now refer back to your numbers, what you found?
Yes, sir. Particulate matter, I found 2.03 MMBTU. Sulfur dioxide, 0.84. Nitrogen dioxide, 1.41.
So comparing these numbers to the numbers in the permit, is Paleotech, are they violating their permit?
Yes, they are.
Would you say greatly or?
By a substantial standard.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Overruled.
Yes, they are violating their permit with these numbers.
Okay. Are you familiar with Jordan Rogers?
Yes, I am.
How do you know him?
He is the pollution control officer at Paleotech. He is in charge of their pollution control system and reporting to the EPA.
Okay, so does he report to you the emission numbers?
Not to me. I mean, I'm
It's an EPA, sorry.
Yes, he does.
EPA. Is he usually good at getting the correct numbers on time?
Yes, he is.
Under your knowledge, is there anything that ever happened in Paleotech that would lead you to believe like this is otherwise untrue?
Not under Jordan Rogers, but previously there was problems.
So Paleotech has had problems with their employees before with,
Yes.
and what were those problems?
It was, like I said, I'm an investigator. All I know is that they had some discrepancies with some of their reports, and I heard that some people were fired over it, but...
Objection, Your Honor, speculative.
Sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, disregard the last comment of the witness.
Are you familiar with scrubbers?
Yes, I am.
And what are they?
Scrubbers are actual mechanical devices that are placed onto the smokestacks that help to get pollution, particulate matter, and some of the other pollutants out of the emissions from the factory. What they actually do is, when the smoke comes up through the stack, they spray a fine mist of usually a chemical solution that traps the particles. They sink to the bottom and are trapped there in the bottom so that they don't go out into the atmosphere.
And what happens if they don't get trapped?
They are emitted. They go out into the atmosphere and could be breathed in.
Okay, and as you investigated Paleotech, how were their scrubbers?
They were in poor repair. They were older models and in poor repair.
Okay. Did you warn anyone of their
Talked to
struggles?
Jordan Rogers about it.
And what did he do?
He said that they were aware of the problem and we're gonna get it fixed.
Okay. Now you said you were fired from the EPA.
Yes.
Were you mad at them when they did?
No, mad's not the right word. More confused, not wondering, what was going on.
Okay. Did you give information to anyone?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
Fair.
And why did you decide to do this?
What was that? I was kind of at a point where I really didn't know where to turn. I was running into a dead end at the EPA. After I did this investigation, I felt like that some actions needed to get done, but I ran into a brick wall when I talked to the people at the EPA, and my kids breathe the same air that his kids breathe, and so I felt kind of morally obligated.
Okay. Did you do this? Did you release information before or after you were let go from the EPA?
Before.
Were you aware that doing this would actually violate your contract with the EPA?
Yes, I was aware of that.
So why do it?
I didn't know who to turn to. I thought a serious situation. I take my job seriously, and when I go in and do an investigation and I find violations, I think actions need to be taken. This is people's health. It's some dangerous chemicals that could come out. So I didn't know who to turn to. I saw the television ads and the media blitz, and so I contacted FAIR.
Okay, and I want to move back. When you read Section 3 of the permit of the Periotech Clean Air Act permit, number 5, you stated that the plant shall comply with all the best available control technology and get all the up-to-date, installing and maintaining the most up-to-date air scrubbers. Were the scrubbers at Periotech up-to-date?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Witness.
Mr. Lee, you said this was a moral dilemma for you? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Let me back up. How did you see the report that you had with you? The one that was too high from Paleotech. How did you get it?
The report that I saw on the desk that wasn't.
Okay, so you saw the report on the desk.
Yes, sir.
So then you saw the report, took it. Yes or no? Did you see the report, take it, and give it to FAIR?
Yes, I did.
At the time, were you aware that you violated your contract? Yes or no?
Yes, I was.
You said you were confused. Yes or no?
Yes.
This wasn't a personal issue with you. Yes or no? I mean, was it a personal issue?
Personal? No.
Yes or no? No, it wasn't. So why didn't you report to your boss?
I did report to my boss.
Right after you saw it and handed it to FAIR. You reported to your boss?
I reported to my boss and asked to go and do other studies, and he denied me. That's what the confusion was over. I'm sorry if I didn't make myself
Wait,
clear.
so you grabbed it, you handed it to FAIR, then you went to go see your boss?
No, I saw my boss and asked if I could do further investigations and was told no. That was the confusion, because I don't understand why we couldn't do more investigation since they were. And then I gave the information to FAIR. When the EPA.
But wasn't your main obligation to go to Paleotech and then just look at their emissions and then bring it back to your boss? Wasn't that your main obligation?
Yes.
Okay. So after you did your job, you went behind Paleotech, received some emissions, then gave it to FAIR.
No.
So what was your job at Paleotech?
To investigate their emissions.
So you did that when you
Yes.
when you had your report? Yes.
Yes.
Then after that,
I went back to the EPA and was told that we weren't going to do any further investigations. I was told that they were fine, that
you told them they were fine. You said
no. I was told by my boss at the EPA.
Your boss told you the emissions were fine
Yes.
before you went
To FAIR.
to FAIR.
Yes, that's true.
So you seeing these papers on the desk and then giving it to FAIR was not personal at all? Even though it risked your job and your livelihood?
Now, I think we're trying, I didn't give anything to Fair until after my boss told me that we weren't investigating anymore. And after I was told that we weren't investigating anymore, that this was the end of it, and after seeing these readings, okay, I admit it might have got a little personal
It
then.
got personal.
Right.
Okay, so you were possibly on a vendetta, would you say?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Overruled.
Vendetta, no. Concerned, very much.
You were concerned.
Yes. Paleotech does a lot for the.
So Paleotech helps the community.
Paleotech does a lot for our community. The only thing that my concern is with Paleotech, no vendetta whatsoever, as long as they don't pollute and break their EPA violations.
Wait, before you go on, this is the only time they violated the Clean Air Act.
As far as I know.
It's the only time.
Right.
And you live in the area, so you must be familiar with Paleotech, yes or no?
Oh, yes.
You are. Okay.
Right. I'm from this area. I'm from Hazel.
Oh, so do you have asthma?
No, I don't.
You don't. How long have you lived there?
All my life.
All your life. And you don't have asthma? No respiratory issues?
No.
Any health ailments?
No.
Does your family have any health issues?
Not to my knowledge.
No. So you have a healthy family.
As far as I know.
How do you know Devin Jackson?
The only way that I know Devin Jackson is from the media and from TV, radio, TV, and the media blitz that was conducted.
But you two have lived in the area all your life. How do
Yeah,
you,
we're both from Hazel Valley.
So you don't.
I'm sorry, the last thing you said, you're both what?
Both from Hazel Valley.
So you never once ran into each other because you lived there all your life. I don't understand how you never ran into each
Well,
other.
Hazel Valley is a pretty big community. I mean, there's lots of people, that live in Hazel Valley that I'm not related to.
But you've lived there all your life.
Yes.
Okay. And he's lived there all his life.
Yes.
You never went to high school with each other because I'm pretty sure there's one high school and one elementary school.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation of the amount of schools.
Disregard the statement of the defense counsel as to what is in Hazy Valley schools.
Okay. Okay, I want to ask you something about the scrubbers. You said they needed repair or they were just out of date?
They were really
They
both.
needed repair.
Well, they're out of date and they need repair. They're old.
How could you tell that? What are scrubbers?
That's my job. Scrubbers, I described them earlier. What they do is they take emissions out of the air, out of the smoke and the particulate matter that comes from the actual burning of the fossil fuels. They help to take some of those emissions out.
Did you inspect them or did you just get readings? Like, did you walk inside some scrubbers and say, hey, they look old?
Just not a rigid inspection. I saw that they were older models and
Eyeballed it?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so you eyeballed the scrubbers from what? Workersville? Did you eyeball them from there? Or were you just right up on it looking at the scrubbers?
Pretty close to them. I have to take my readings from there. So, I mean, yeah, I was right there at them.
So how do you know they are not in compliance with the Clean Air Act, the scrubbers?
Because Jordan Rogers told me that they're having problems with their scrubbers. That's the reason that their numbers were high. Because the pollution control officer from the plant himself said, we're having problems with our scrubbers, they're old, and that's the reason these levels are what they are.
No.
Anything else?
No, yeah.
Any read rap?
Yes, sir. Did Paleotech violate their permit?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
How?
I'm sorry, you got more now?
Okay.
Let me go. And not you. You may go.
No,
So you don't have questions?
no more.
You sure?
Positive.
All done?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna let him go.
Please do,
Going once?
please do.
Going twice? Step down.
I'd like to call Morgan Williams to the stand, Your Honor.
I'll swear her. You solemnly swear the information that you will give this court will be untrue, false, and completely made up? And interested in a beverage? Go ahead.
Could you please state your name for the record, please?
I'm Dr. Morgan Williams.
And what is your profession?
I am a pulmonary specialist that focuses on pulmonary diseases.
And what is your educational background?
I graduated in '88 with an MD and PhD in pulmonary diseases at State University. I went to Massachusetts and Massachusetts General for my residency, then did my fellowship in San Francisco.
And have you produced any articles?
Yes, I've produced 23 articles. They've been published. They consist of pulmonary diseases and how urban air has affected infants, children, and adults.
Could you tell me about any one of these articles in particular?
I've done a few articles of urban air and how coal-burning plants have produced toxins in the air, and it affects infants and children.
Your Honor, I'd like to classify Dr. Morgan Williams as an expert on pulmonary lung diseases.
Do you want to offer her as an expert in, or tender her?
Sir?
Or did you want to tender her rather than classify her?
Sure.
Yes, Your Honor.
That would be a yes.
Yes.
Any more questions you want to ask her?
Do you classify her as an expert?
Yes.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any objection?
I need more questions. I don't think she's qualified.
Speak to me later after this.
At
kidding,
this
just
point,
kidding.
I'll let you ask more questions.
Okay.
Can I ask more questions? All right. Could you tell me about some of the work that you've done in Hazy Valley?
I have done 8 epidemiological studies. These studies are the causes, effects of a disease, which is in this case pulmonary diseases. I've been published in peer reviews within these. I've done surveys within Hazy Valley, and I've worked over 10 years in the state hospital in Hazy Valley as a clinical researcher.
How many years have you been studying pulmonary diseases?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years. And out of the articles that you produced, all of them have been published, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, may I classify her as an expert witness?
Yeah.
Do you still object? You ever been here before?
I have.
You ever testified before?
No.
Oh, never testified in a court before?
Doing pretty good, right?
All right, she may testify as an expert.
In your epidemiological studies, did you find any environmental pollution?
Yes.
All right. Could you name some of the pollutants that you found?
There is 6 types of pollutants in the environmental. Sulfur dioxide, particulate matter, ozone, ground.
Objection. She's not an environmental major.
This is
She
one
does
of the
pulmonary. She deals with pulmonary diseases, right?
pulmonary diseases that focus on the pollution that it causes.
Do you want me to narrow it down?
Please.
Well,
Okay.
you can cross-examine her at the appropriate time.
Okay.
If that's an objection, it's overruled.
Out of the pollutants that you were going to name, could you name the 2 that most adversely affect pulmonary?
Within my clinical research, we found that sulfur dioxide and particulate matter are the 2 main causes and can be the big triggers of asthma and other pulmonary diseases.
Could you briefly describe what being around sulfur dioxide and particulate matter can do to your lungs?
Particulate matter are small little particles. Could come from any pollutants. Small little particles that you won't see, but when you breathe in, it'll be stuck in your throat. Everyone has mucus in their lining of their throat. It's normal. But within asthmatics, when it gets lodged in there, you have an exceeded amount of mucus. This will make also very difficult to breathe. Once that gets triggered, you'll have an asthma attack, which your bronchial tubes will close up. So you see it's kind of a serious matter. If you're in sulfur dioxide for more than 10 minutes, even if you're not asthmatic, have bronchitis, you'll begin to cough. It takes an hour to get out of that area for your pulmonary functions to go back to normal.
All right, and are these two pollutants produced by a coal burning plant?
Yes, they are.
All right. In your epidemiological studies, you had to conduct indoor and outdoor studies, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. How did you conduct the indoor studies?
I did surveys. I sent 100 surveys, 50 closest to the plant and 50 farthest, okay? These surveys will ask simple questions such as, do you have asthma? Does your significant other have asthma? Does your child have asthma? Yes or no, simple. Then from there, do you have pets? Have you ever had pets? If you do have pets, how many? Also, do you smoke? Does your significant other smoke? Does your grandparents that tend to your kids smoke? Yes or no? Also, what type of cleaning products do you use? Are you aware of any mold in your house? Are you aware of having an abundance amount of dust anywhere within your house? How many cars do you drive? Simple things.
Why would the parents having asthma not be relevant?
If neither one of parents have asthma, it's a 6% chance of your child having asthma.
And let's say one of the parents have asthma?
It's less than 50%.
Less than 50%. All right, and in your outdoor studies, what did you find for your epidemiological studies?
That found. Hazy Valley has an abundance amount of pollutants and abundance amount of people that suffer from pulmonary issues, 10% higher than other regions.
10%. Could I use a visual aid to help the jury understand how much 10% compared to the rest of the state would be?
I don't know. You can try.
We'll see.
Let's just show it to her first.
Pretty.
Yeah, so not the greatest visual aid, but could you kind of explain this visual aid to me, please?
Well,
Do you want me to show it?
first of all, you're going to have that marked.
So
We're not admitting.
It's
not evidence. It's just a visual aid.
like a demonstrative.
What says the defense?
No.
No objection?
No objection.
No, object. No, we object. No.
You don't want.
The objection is sustained if you're not going to introduce it.
Okay.
For injuries.
It's just a visual aid.
We like to introduce as plaintiff's exhibit number 6.
Any objection? Okay.
There it is.
We'll just pretend there's a yellow sticker on it.
Sticker. Okay. I'll show it to you guys because you are not quite aware. Hazy Valley's to your left. Remaining areas of North Carolina is to your right. See it?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Here we are. As you see, the red are the pulmonary issued people. They're the sensitive group. The green, you're in the clear. As you see, there is only 4 that are in the clear in this area. 6 has a pulmonary issue. That can range from asthma, bronchitis, emphysema, cancer. As this group has only 5 and 5, it's half and half. So, to make it more real, if y'all lived in Hazy Valley, y'all 12 of you guys and ladies, 7 of you guys will have a pulmonary issue. Yeah? Do the math? Do it. 12? 7? Yeah. Sorry. Carry the 2. See? Everyone sees? All right. Okay. Any question on my math? Just kidding.
So, if it was in a population, let's say, of 500 people, would that be a significant number?
think any pulmonary issue, no matter the numbers, is a significant matter.
All right. In your affidavit, you did claim that indoor air pollution can play a bigger role with pulmonary diseases. Is this correct?
I agree.
All right. Could you elaborate?
I agree that genetics is a big role, environmental is a big role, and indoor air quality is a big role. Indoor air quality is huge triggers. You never get asthma over owning a puppy, but you can get an asthma attack with that puppy standard. You can get an asthma attack with someone not dusting right, or if you're vacuuming and you're next to an asthmatic. Yes, you can have an asthma attack, but no, just petting a puppy, you're not going to have asthma.
So indoor air quality can trigger but not cause.
Yes, unless there's an abundance amount of mold, abundance amount of smoke.
All right. And how does outdoor air pollution, how does that cause or trigger pulmonary diseases?
Example of particular matter, you don't know what you're breathing in, but your lungs do. It gets lodged in your throat.
In your expert opinion, can environmental pollution cause asthma?
Yes.
All right. Can it do more than just trigger?
Yes.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Have you had any respiratory problems?
Do I?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And what kind of research and studies have you done in Hazy Valley?
What types?
Yeah, what types of research?
The epidemiological studies I've done the survey, and I've done over 10 years of clinical research within the hospital of Hazy Valley.
Okay. In your statement, you said that one of your studies showed no significant link between air pollution and shortness of breath in adults.
Mm-hmm.
Then you also said that you believe that this was a result of your data, the problem with your data.
Yes.
Why do you believe that you had a problem with your data in this study?
Within the study, I don't personally gather and put pollutants in people's lungs. I don't personally see what they do. So I have to go off other data to focus on that. So it was not a clinical trial within that epidemiological study.
Do you think that other studies of yours could have problems with their data as well, since this one did? Now, why do you believe that other ones could not have problems as well, when you're relying on data from other people?
I did that study. I personally did majority of the data.
Okay. What causes asthma?
What causes asthma? Many things cause asthma.
Can you give me some examples of things that cause asthma?
Cause asthma? Abundance amount of mold. Cigarette smoke can be a link of it. Car fumes could be a link of it. Coal power plants could be a link to it. Industrial emissions could be a link to it. Genetics could be a link to it.
Okay. Is it true that it has not been proven any certain factors that cause asthma? There's no proof of what causes asthma.
There's not one proof of what exactly causes asthma.
Okay. What factors can cause asthma to flare besides air pollution?
Other factors? Many of the indoor qualities are huge triggers.
Okay. How is asthma diagnosed?
Diagnosed? You go to a doctor. They typically make you do a survey. The survey, kind of like mine, but a little less, just condensed. They ask you if you're a smoker, they ask you if you have pets, they ask you how often does your kid get sick, if you have a common cold, does it turn into bronchitis? Oftentimes when it turns into bronchitis, that means you have an abundance amount of mucus. From there, they make sure if you have a runny nose, they check if you have any wheezing within your lungs. Then they do a spirometer, which you blow in. It tests how fast you blow out and how long you can blow out. If you're within a range below 50%, then you have a pulmonary issue.
What impact does indoor air quality have on respiratory problems?
Indoor air quality impact.
Yeah.
Like I said before, indoor air quality can trigger. That's the huge impact. It can trigger.
Okay. And you did your study, you used a survey to conduct your study. Do you find that to be a reliable source?
Yes.
Isn't it true that oftentimes surveys prove to be insufficient due to the surveyor not being 100% honest?
My surveys were anonymous, and within my research, I've found that if you do a survey that you don't have to put your name on it, people are a lot more honest.
Okay. How many homes did you conduct your study on?
Excuse me?
How many homes did you conduct your study on?
100.
Okay. And do you feel that it would be a better investigation to actually physically inspect these homes rather than just doing a simple survey? And I just need a yes or no answer.
Yes or no? No.
Yeah. Why would you not feel this would be better when you're physically seeing evidence rather than just relying on somebody to tell you the truth?
Because if I go into 100 homes, let's just say 100, that's not really saying am I going to pour up their floorboards, see if they have any water damage? Am I going to go within their nooks and crannies of their house and be like, oh, it's rude. People are not going to invite you into their home to see that.
So, are you aware that what VOCs are? If not, they're volatile organic compounds, and they have been linked to asthma and other respiratory problems. Are you aware that VOCs are oftentimes found in household products such as cleaning products, air fresheners, and beauty products?
Aerosol cans and stuff like that.
Things of that matter.
Yeah.
In your survey, did you ask if people oftentimes use aerosol sprays and things like that in their homes?
No, I did not.
Okay. What pollutants did you find have the highest numbers in Hazy Valley?
What pollutants?
Yes.
Particulate matter and sulfur dioxide.
Okay.
Your voice is dropping a little.
Sulfur dioxide and particulate matter.
And what were the effects of particulate matter on the lungs and other parts of the body?
The effects. That type of pollutants can affect your heart, it can affect your lungs because it's lodged. They're little matters lodged. So that can affect and lead to other problems.
What are some specific symptoms you would see in somebody that had been exposed to particulate matter?
Symptoms? Coughing, wheezing, excess amount of mucus, runny nose. Can you continue?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Have you ever been an expert witness before?
Yes. 12 times.
And are you being paid for today's testimony?
Am I being paid? Yes, I am.
And how much are you being paid today?
$400.
Are you more partial towards the plaintiff for any personal reasons? You said in your affidavit that you really believed in their cause.
I do.
Could that be swaying your testimony today at all?
Not at all.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
You witness?
I have no reason to read it right.
Thank you, ma'am. You can now. Please tell us your Call your next witness.
We'd like Alex Martinez to come to the stand, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, please say your name for the record.
Alex Martinez?
Are you from Hazy Valley?
I am not.
Where do you live?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. What is your occupation?
I am a professor at NC State University. for
What are you a
environmental
professor? Oh,
Where?
health. NC State University.
Where's that? What's it called?
NC State University.
Oh, you mean the University of North Carolina located at Raleigh?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
how long have you been a professor of environmental health?
For about 10 years.
Can you describe environmental health, please?
Environmental health is a branch of public health that focuses on aspects of natural and built environment that affects human health.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes.
Can you tell us about your educational background?
I went to State University for college and to get my master's in environmental health, and then I went to UC Berkeley to get my PhD in environmental science and policy.
And throughout your schooling and after schooling, have you done a thesis?
Yes, my thesis is
that I have developed a new air pollution modeling software. It has been used frequently in academia, and that actually state EPAs are actually thinking about adopting.
Can you describe a little more what this modeling software is?
The modeling that I made is not a traditional model. It is a receptor model, which actually takes the pollutants in the air. It takes all the emissions that are already out in the air and directly goes to the source that the emissions are coming from.
And have you ever testified as an expert witness before?
Yes,
How
4
many
times.
At this time, I'd like to qualify Alex Martinez as an expert in environmental health and science.
Resist the defense.
No objection.
Have you taken any air samples from Hazy Valley?
Yes,
Have you taken them with your modeling software?
yes,
What about Workville?
yes.
In the same for your model? What process did you take to collect these samples?
I took the receptor models out into the general area. The computer takes the emissions that are in the air, calculates everything, and then comes and relays it back to me.
And how many hours did you do this?
8 hours for a week in July.
Every 8 hours?
Every 8 hours, yes.
And what did you find?
I found that there are drastically huge amounts of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, and ozone that are really high.
Were they higher or lower than the cutoff for the Clean Air Act permit?
In Workville, they're 80% above the cutoff for Clean Air Act, and other neighborhoods in Hazy Valley are actually 40% above cutoff.
So they're all above.
Yes.
What can you tell us about the types of pollutants that you found in Workville?
Sulfur dioxide, which I found, is generally it's a gas that affects human health, that is generally made from burning coal. Nitrogen dioxide is mainly from tailpipes. It is a gas as well, and it generally affects human health as well as particulate matter and ozone.
And how much of the pollutants did you find?
60% of the pollutants are actually directed from only coal-fired plant.
Did you find any carbon monoxide?
No, I did not.
Okay. And in your opinion, where would you say the source is?
Paleotech.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the answer to that last question?
Paleotech?
Are there any other coal-fired plants anywhere, like, near, and how far away?
The only other coal-fired plant is in the next county, which happens to be 30 miles to the west.
And what does this mean?
This means that the air pollutants that this other coal-fired plant is putting out, it is very hard for these pollutants to generate towards the next county over. Being in a valley, there are a lot of mountains. By the time these air pollutants got to the Hazy Valley, they would definitely be diluted.
Okay. How does weather affect the pollutants?
Weather does affect these pollutants. Weather generally goes from west to east. Being in North Carolina, they go from west to east, and it being hot, and in July, they are normally southwestern winds, so they are coming up from southwest, western winds to east. These winds can, being in a valley, these winds can jump over the mountains in the morning.
Would a model of the map help you describe this better?
Yeah.
Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Sure.
I'd like to introduce this as a plaintiff's exhibit number 7.
Y'all seen it?
It's the map. Okay.
Any objection? It's admitted.
So the winds are coming from the west to the east. Since the coal-fired plant is 30 miles this way, it is surrounded by mountains. These winds could possibly jump over the mountains, totally skip Workville, and
Excuse me. Can we please sit down so I can see the mics up there?
Well, why don't you come around to this side?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you approach the jury so we can't see?
You know, that'd be an excellent idea.
Very good idea, thank you.
I have copies.
Why don't you come down and
If he would
Show
like
the
to
jury.
publish them.
Use the.
You can use that as well if you like.
why don't you approach the jury?
Yeah, she's perfect.
One of y'all can move around if you want to see what she's doing.
The winds are coming from the west and are focusing going towards the east. Since Workville and Hazy Valley is a valley, the winds are actually more than likely going to jump over the mountains. Hazy Valley has a lot of smog, fog, and these pollutants can get trapped above Hazy Valley. So more than likely, if they are not diluted already, these emissions are going to basically get either trapped above and pushed over, or just simply skip over Hazy Valley. So these winds can technically just totally skip Hazy Valley all in all.
And you mentioned something about smog and fog.
Yes.
Now, does that have any effect on the pollutants that are already in the valley?
Yes, these pollutants that are already in Workville and Hazy Valley, like I said, they can either be trapped inside Hazy Valley or due to sometimes it does rain, they can clean out, but Paleotech is emitting all the time these emissions that it just circulates. It just gets trapped inside Hazy Valley.
Okay. Are you aware of that Paleotech may be granted permission to increase its emission with a pilot tradable
Yes.
program? Can you kind of describe what a pilot, like a tradable program is?
She doesn't work for.
I'm sorry?
She doesn't work for Paleotech. She can't speak on it.
It's common knowledge, right?
Rephrase the question.
I'm asking if she was aware that Paleotech may be granted permission to increase its emissions with the pilot tradable permit program. It's in her affidavit that she was aware.
And you object to that? Overruled.
Yes, I was aware.
And what is like the tradable permit program? As
This
a brief description.
this permit that they're wanting, it's another set of emissions that they are allowed to emit. If they do grant it and they would want it, they can take these emissions and either increase them or decrease them, mostly increasing them. And if they have any of these credits that they are received, they are able to trade them or sell them to other coal-fired plants or any other plants, and they can, which will allow other plants to increase their emissions as well.
Okay. And the numbers that Paleotech had, their emission statements, would they go up or go down?
They would go up.
And what are your thoughts on this?
My opinion, I do not believe it is a good idea. I think these permits are normally only involved in regional and global regions that are greatly impacted by pollution, and it would only burden the community further.
Objection, Your Honor. Not a field of study, not a field of expertise.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Kind of late now, though.
Yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Your witness.
Okay, good afternoon. You stated that your modeling software looks at polluted areas and is able to work backward to find out the type of, and in some cases even the identity of the sources.
Yes, ma'am.
And how does that work?
It is able to take the pollutants that are already in the air and the emissions that are coming out from anywhere and actually work towards or focus on the source and the identity of where these emissions are coming from.
Okay, so what exactly were the pollutants in the air that when you did your receptor model, your study?
I found sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, and ozone.
And what were those levels?
They were about 80% higher than the cutoff that they're allowed to be.
So in your affidavit, when you say those pollutant levels were above the cutoff in the Clean Air Act about 80% of the time,
Right.
So it's 80% of the time. They weren't 80% above the level.
Right.
So which one is
It's
it?
80% of the time.
80% of the time. So then what is the level that they are above then? Since it's not 80% now, what is the level?
60%.
Okay, now it's 60%. Okay. And can you explain your receptor model?
It is a model that it's a software that is put into the computers that generates the pollutants that are in the air, and it focuses on the emissions, and the computer relays it back to me and tells me everything.
Okay, so do receptors models use chemical and physical characteristics of the gases and particles measured at the source?
No, that's photochemical. That's a modeling.
Okay, so on the EPA's website, when they introduce exactly what a receptor model is, the EPA's website is wrong? The EPA, the government, is
No.
wrong with their definition of a receptor model?
I don't recall one.
Would you like to see it?
Sure.
In the meantime, so you said the computer takes the emissions?
The software, yes.
The software takes the emissions. How does software take emissions?
It's inside the computer. The computer relays the information, which has the software that I developed in it.
Right, but how does a computer take samples?
It's a type of computer that takes generates the emissions that are already in the air.
What I'm asking, do you enter data into the computer?
That's what the software does.
Okay, so how do you get the samples then? How do you get the data that you enter into the computer?
The computer gets it.
Okay. So you enter data into the computer, right?
Yes.
The data you enter into the computer, that you specifically enter into the computer, where do you get that
The
data
software.
from?
The software gives me the numbers.
Right, I understand that. What I'm saying is, where do you get the data from?
The air,
And how do you get it from the air?
the computer, the software, it gets everything.
Okay, so you don't have pollution in the air that you just said that you have sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, and ozone in the air that you get samples from, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get those samples?
The computer has a device on it that takes the pollutants in the air. It all calculates and generates into the computer.
Okay, you also stated that you found the concentration of criteria pollutants, including sulfur dioxide and the other criteria pollutants, to be higher, significantly higher. What is a non-attainment area?
A non-attainment area is an area that is already higher in emissions that the Clean Air Act is allowing them to have.
So is it safe to say then that Hazy Valley is already above their levels of emissions,
At a certain point, yes.
even before Paleotech is even there, not even including Paleotech?
Yes.
Are you aware that ozone is not one of the pollutants that Paleotech emits?
Yes, although I did find it in my studies, yes.
Okay, and so how were you able to determine that over 60% of the pollutants in your sample came from coal-fired power plants?
Well, these emissions that I did find that were 60% all came from a coal-fired plant.
How do you know that they come from a coal-fired plant?
Because that's what type of emissions come from a coal-fired plant. That's what sulfur dioxide is a gas that comes from burning coal.
Is it not true that you were unable to prove that 100% certainty that Paleotech is indeed the source of the pollution?
Right.
Okay, you said something about drastic, huge amounts. What exactly do you mean by drastically huge? Can you give me a specific?
Huge what? Drastically huge what?
When you answered during direct examination, you said there are drastically huge amounts.
Well, I believe, yes, these emissions are a lot more than what they should be.
A lot more or drastically more?
Yes, a lot, drastically. I think that is a lot.
Unless you want to cut into your own time, keep going, but you're cutting into your time with your witness.
So how do you know that you said about the mountain ranges and how it will be diluted before it even gets into the valley?
Yes.
How do you know that?
The wind, the pollutants that would be coming from another coal-fired plant, 30 miles is a good amount of time of miles to be carrying those pollutants. They would be either not completely diluted, they would possibly be either, like I said, skipped over or trapped.
Okay, no further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You can come down. Please watch your step. Probably next witness.
Well, we have no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. Y'all have 4 witnesses too? All right, we got time to take like a 10-minute break. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we'll give you a 10-minute break. There should be restrooms back here, water for you.
I need you.
I'll try to open the jury room too.
So we had a snag in the evidence. We had a snag.
Yes, you can.
Who's your first witness?
Yes, you can.
Cameron said
He said it's president. They said it's rare, but you can.
And who's going to cross? Who's going to direct this? Who's going to be the lawyer?
Hey, Alex, what number is the permit? 5. Thank you.
Yeah, if she's like, whoa, my grandfather said, because that it's not big yet. No, it's more like it looks good, or but if you enter, it looks like
Are we missing one?
She will be out here.
Business.
She's still down checking your car.
Okay. All right, that's all right. She can just come in once she gets there. Are you cold? Now, I'll tell you like I tell real jurors all the time. A Superior Court judge is a very powerful person. However, I've learned over the last 25 years that a Superior Court judge has almost no power to regulate the temperature in a courtroom. All right, let the record reflect our jury is back. What says the defendant?
I'd like to call Cameron Chen.
This is Cameron Chin.
Cameron
Can you hear me
Chen.
now?
Okay. Come on up, ma'am. Please watch your step.
solemnly swear to tell me the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Cameron Chin,
What is your current occupation?
president of Paleotech.
Where do you live?
14 Everglade Terrace in Rolling Hills in Hazy Valley.
How long have you been president of Paleotech?
As of this year, I've been president for 13 years.
How did you get that job as president?
I've had a background of political science. I have my bachelor's in political science, a concentration in public administration from the University of South Carolina. My senior year, I actually interned with Greenpeace, a international organization. While I was there, I was over business management as I worked my way up. I was also into public relations for Greenpeace. I worked there for about 15 years, and in 2000, I actually applied for a job with Paleotech.
How long have you been president of Paleotech?
I've been president of Paleotech for 13 years as of this year.
What programs does Paleotech provide for the community?
Paleotech provides several programs for the community. First of all, we are the primary employer in the community, but as a secondary resource, we also provide a homeless shelter. We provide literacy programs to the community. We do Earth and Environmental Days every month. We also have programs in the local schools of Hazy Valley, after-school programs.
So probably the community is pretty important for Paleotech, right?
Yes, it is.
Do you supply jobs to anybody in the community? Any people?
We supply jobs to 20% of the Hazy Valley community.
Any Workville? Anybody in Workville? Any employees in Workville?
We have several employees in Workville.
Can you tell me like daily operations in Paleotech, how they run?
Well, since I am the president of Paleotech, I am over management, so I don't have a hands-on approach with the actual physical employees. I overlook management. And the overall operations, I would say that I actually am on the floor to see how everything is going as far as the everyday operations, but I'm not physically there during the operations.
Do like the heads of the departments contact you about any?
I am briefed about different issues as far as the company goes.
Do you personally hire managers of each department? You personally hire them, or do you have a committee?
We have a human resources committee that does the hiring, but I am briefed as far as the applicants. And I also play a major role in the hiring of managers.
Are there any problems going on at Paleotech?
The only problem that, to my knowledge of, is the one that I'm currently in court for today, which is our emissions being above what is in our permit.
What is in your permit exactly?
In our permit, there's a certain standard that the Clean Air Act requires that we comply with. And this year in particular, our emissions were above the standards that are required.
Is this for 1 week? Was it just for 1 week?
Yes, it was just for this 1 week.
Has there been any previous problems with emissions at Paleotech?
There have been no previous problems with emissions. In 2004, we did have a minor discrepancy in which there were employees that were actually taking longer than usual coffee breaks. And so since they were rushing, they sent off the wrong report, and that was when we actually fired the employees for that.
So these coffee breaks are no longer a problem at Paleotech?
They aren't.
how did you take care of these problems with these employees, these bad employees?
Well, since 2004, we have fired those employees, but in 2005, we hired Jordan Rogers, and he runs a tight ship.
There's been no problem since Jordan Rogers has been hired.
There's been no problem since Jordan Rogers.
I want to go back to the financial problems. How have they affected any physical parts of the plant, the financial problems?
Well, since 2008 and the economic decline that the U.S. has been in, there has been some issues as far as breaking even with funds. And so we did have an issue as far as purchasing new scrubbers. So that was the reason that we applied for the new pilot program with the EPA.
Can you say more about this new pilot program?
The new pilot program is actually a market-based approach that would allow us to purchase permits from other factories that are capable of reducing emissions where we may not be able to reduce emissions right now, but we are in the process. It's pretty much our backup plan.
What would happen if these scrubbers get damaged to a point where you must replace them? What would happen?
If right now we simply wouldn't be able to afford it, which is why we've applied for the pilot program.
Can you tell me about how this week of bad emission report, how did this all come up? I mean, if this is the only time.
Well, there was an employee by the name of, I do believe, Thomas Payne.
Terry.
Payne.
Objection, Your Honor, leading the witness.
Thomas. It's either Thomas or Terry Payne, I do believe. But he is beneath Jordan Rogers, and he did send off the wrong report, but because Jordan Rogers does run a tight ship, and he does oversee the maintenance and record keeping, he actually did send in the correct report, which verified that we were over the emission standards at that one point in time.
And Paytech has never exceeded emissions in the past, ever.
We have never exceeded emissions before, besides this one time.
And this was the only time.
And this was the only time.
How do you know CJ Lee? How do you know CJ Lee?
CJ Lee is the EPA person that Jordan Rogers would usually, well, actually, CJ Lee is the investigator that was sent in to investigate this matter of us being above the standards this one time. So because we had to send out reports weekly, CJ Lee was the person that would come and run the test as far as our emissions being above the standards.
Okay, no further questions.
So you said that as the president, you're informed of any issues concerning the EPA, correct? Yes, ma'am. And you said that Jordan Rogers informed you of these issues? Yes, ma'am. And who exactly is Jordan Rogers? Jordan Rogers is our chief pollution officer here at Paleotech. Okay, and are you, did Jordan Rogers inform you of any problems with the emissions reports that happened the week of March 3rd, 2008? Yes, ma'am, he briefed me. So, as the president, you are informed, oh, wait a minute. In your deposition, I'll ask you the same exact question. You said that no, Jordan Rogers did not inform you that. Jordan Rogers is our chief pollutions officer, so I may have been mistaken,
because we have several managers across the board. If it had not been him that briefed me, it may have been another manager that actually briefed me at the time.
So, did Jordan Rogers not brief you?
Jordan Rogers, it may or may not have been Jordan Rogers that briefed me at that time. I may have been mistaken when I stated that in the deposition.
Okay. So is it true that Paleotech admissions officers have been in trouble before?
The only time the admissions officers were in trouble was previously in 2004 when they were fired for taking longer than usual coffee breaks and they sent in the wrong reports.
Okay. And you said that you haven't had any problems since Jordan Rogers started at Paleotech, correct?
Correct.
Until now.
The only problem that we've had now.
I mean, yes or no?
Yes.
So no problems since, until now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How many Paleotech plants are in the United States that you know of?
There are 2 other Paleotech plants in the United States.
And are you in contact with any of them?
Yes, we are.
And do they have any problems violating their Clean Air Act permit?
They do not have any problems that they've alerted me of.
Okay, and have the other 2 Paleotech plants had any troubles with their emissions report officers?
They've had minor issues as far as how you normally would have workers that sometimes may slip on the job, as far as maybe taking longer than usual coffee breaks or just having a rough day and not being as meticulous as they could be.
Okay. Is it true that Paleotech is part of the new tradable permits program?
We are applying to become a part of the program.
Okay. So, as the president of Paleotech, it's your job to oversee and make sure the company is running correctly, correct?
Correct.
Are you notified as to when anything within the factory needs to be changed or renovated, like any routine?
I am briefed, but Jordan Rogers is ultimately the manager that would be over maintenance as well as the internal records as far as emissions.
So as the president, you're not notified like when the company is going to be shelling out a bunch of money to change, say, the scrubbers within the company?
I am notified, but he is ultimately over maintenance procedures for that. I am notified.
Okay. Do you know when the last time the scrubbers in the factory were changed?
The scrubbers in the factory were changed in 2006 because the scrubbers last between 1 to 2 years with optimal maintenance.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Sure.
I would like to refer back to Plaintiff's Exhibit number 5. Just the Clean Air permit. If you would just read section 3, number 5 for me, please.
The plant shall comply with all best available control technology requirements, including installing and maintaining the most up-to-date air scrubbers.
So, what does this mean to you?
This means that we would be held responsible for replacing the scrubbers.
Okay. So you said that they needed to be changed out every 1 to 2 years.
Yes, ma'am, with optimal maintenance.
What kind of maintenance?
Optimal maintenance.
And you said that they haven't been changed since 2006?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Overrule.
Since they would last for up to 2 years, and we continuously ensure that we maintain the scrubbers. So we use the scrubbers for 2 years. And since we are in an economic decline right now, it is not fiscally in our budget to actually purchase the scrubbers right now, although we will be able to in the future as soon as we come into, we're able to actually make the money to purchase new scrubbers. This is the reason why we've applied to the pilot program.
Okay. So until the end, the community of Workville is just gonna have to suffer.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Overrule.
Yes or no?
No.
So the scrubbers aren't old, and you said that you don't have enough money to get new ones. So until then, they're gonna be.
Objection, compound question.
Well, rephrase your question.
Okay, sorry. You said that they're changed out every 1 to 2 years, correct?
Correct.
And right now you don't have enough money to get new ones, correct?
Correct.
And so until then, the residents of Workville and Hazy Valley are just going to have
Objection, Your
to.
Honor, the witness has no personal
Well,
knowledge to answer.
Let her finish the question. Don't answer the question, just listen to it.
So until then, since Paleotech doesn't have the money to quote unquote fix the scrubbers, the air is just going to keep getting polluted.
You object to that? Apparently not.
Objection, Your Honor, the witness doesn't have any personal knowledge to environmental health and environmental science.
Did you understand the question? All right, objections overruled. You may answer it.
Hazy Valley residents haven't been suffering. This is our only occurrence. So as for them suffering, it is not to my knowledge that they have.
So your factory doesn't put out pollutants in the air? Yes or no?
The factory does
Okay.
put out
It does, yes.
pollutants as any other factory would.
Okay, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
If you were to fix the outdated scrubbers, not majorly outdated, just repair them, what would happen to the community's power?
The community wouldn't be charged a 40% increase as opposed to 85 workers being laid off or over 300 workers losing their jobs and still having to pay their current electric bill with a 40% increase.
So the community would be taxed higher if you had to change the scrubbers right out.
The cost would be passed on to the consumer, which would be the 40% increase.
Is your aim to help the community?
Yes, my aim is to help the community.
And every plant emits something in there, right?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Overruled.
Yes, every plant emits some byproduct.
So your plant isn't the only plant that's ever done that?
Our plant it has never been the only plant that has done that.
And are you trying to keep these employees working in this community?
Yes, I am.
What experience do you have with scrubbers?
I have a limited scope, but as far as my trainings and experience goes, I do understand scrubbers, and I'm able to differentiate between the scrubbers to actually know what the function of the scrubbers are.
So you're not in the scrubbers repairing them yourself?
I'm not the engineer to repair the scrubbers.
Okay, questions? No further questions?
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
You may come down. Thank you, ma'am. I had some questions, but I'll just keep them to myself. All right, next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Mr. Jordan Rogers to the stand.
Your Honor, may I take the exhibit off the stand?
Is it yours?
Yes, Your Honor. Somebody can hear me.
Yeah, sure. You swear to tell us a bunch of lies too?
I do.
That's fine, come on. You got two more witnesses?
Yeah.
I want you to have them come up. You got 5 witnesses?
Well, 3 more including the current witness.
Okay, so you got 2 more witnesses.
After
Have them
you.
come up and have a seat up here. All right, let's roll.
Please state your name for the record,
My name is Jordan Rogers,
and where do you currently reside?
2415 Meridian Street in Hazy Valley.
And what is your educational background?
I have a degree in industrial engineering from NC State University.
And can you please briefly explain industrial engineering?
Industrial engineering is the process of integrating systems and people and managing them efficiently.
And do you have any extra training, such as environmental training?
No, I do not.
Are you currently employed?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long who with,
Paleotech
and how long?
for 8 years.
And your current job title?
Chief Pollution Control Officer,
And how long have you been the chief?
8 years.
Can you explain what some of the parts of the factory that create emissions are?
Sure. You have the smokestacks, which is where the polluted vapor will be filtered and then rise into the air. You have the effluent pipes where the waste will be filtered into the water. And we also have some occasional solid waste we have to deal with.
And are you familiar with scrubbers?
I am.
And please explain.
A scrubber is a type of filter that will inject a chemical into the air rising up through the smokestacks to make it safe to then enter the general air population.
And please explain any issues with Paleotech scrubbers.
I'm not aware of any issues with our scrubbers.
Earlier, you stated that you oversee the record keeping of the parts of the factory that create these emissions. Please explain in further detail what exactly it means to oversee the record keeping.
I make sure that the reports that are sent to the EPA and our personal records of our pollutant matter are correct.
And how often do these reports get sent to the North Carolina EPA?
For most of the time, it's been once a month, but recently we've came under some frivolous scrutiny and it's been once a week.
And who actually sends the reports in?
Usually it's just the employee who takes the readings of that day, but occasionally I will step in and make sure everything's running smoothly.
So do you physically review every report?
No.
Can you explain the mix-up in the reports sent to North Carolina EPA during the week of March 3rd through the 10th?
Sure. There was one report that was taken by a fairly new employee who didn't really have a general idea of what he was doing yet. And before he was going to submit this report, he was going to deliver it to me. But before he had the chance to submit this report for my review, an EPA investigator actually found his way into this individual's office and took this report without permission from Paleotech.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please identify that document, please?
Sure. This is the report that I signed off on for the week of March 3rd through the 10th of 2008.
For the record, what's the number?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, it's Defendant's Exhibit Number 1.
Okay.
And the date on this report, please?
March 3 through 10, 2008.
And does it have your signature on it?
Yes, ma'am. Right there.
Okay, and so this is certified as true and accurate and
Yes.
complete? Okay.
Yes.
Can you please tell me what exactly is in the report?
Sure. In this report, you have the emissions data for this week, and it has 3 main sources of pollutants that we monitor for: the particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide.
Your Honor, we offer an exhibit, Defendant's Exhibit Number 1 into evidence at this time.
Is that the one you just showed him?
Yes.
I thought you said 2.
Exhibit Number 1.
Okay. Any objection?
No.
I submit an objection.
May I publish it to the jury?
Sure. Is there a 2?
No. No.
I must have misunderstood you. Our bailiff will pass those out.
you take that report that you signed and you compare it to Paleotech's Clean Air Act permit, tell me about the numbers.
The numbers weren't what the permit specified.
Okay. Was the corrective report that you prepared that was sent in to the North Carolina EPA within the limitations outlined in Paleotech's permit?
Those were the true and accurate numbers for the week, yes ma'am.
Okay, to your knowledge, is this the only time that, scratch that. Okay, prior, what is your contact with CJ Lee?
I've had very minimal contact with CJ Lee, considering he's been fired.
Can you elaborate further?
Sure. He was the investigator sent to Paleotech to look at our emissions data for a given week, and he also more or less snooped into our offices where he had no right to be, and he stole a report that had not been sent or authorized by me yet. And he's then given this report to the organization FAIR, who is the sponsor of this, in my opinion, frivolous lawsuit.
Are you an honest person, Mr. Rogers?
Very much so.
Have you always engaged in honest behavior?
No, there was a time when I was young and stupid.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
If you wish. In college, I was drunk a lot of the time, against my better judgment now. And during one of these episodes, I stole a check from my roommate in order to go out and do whatever. I don't remember what it was now. But I was caught doing this act, and I spent a month in jail as well as had to pay a hefty fine. And in my time in jail, I rediscovered myself and decided I needed to change my life and be the person I am today, which I believe is a much better individual.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Cross?
Can you describe scrubbers again and what they do?
Scrubbers are a type of filter that will inject certain chemicals into the vapor rising up into a smokestack and filter the air.
And do scrubbers help lower the emissions released?
Well, yes.
Would you say that they do?
That's what they're designed to do.
And the numbers that were found on the week of March 3rd to the 10th were doubled, if not tripled, those numbers that are in your permit, correct?
I'd like to look at the report again.
You have it right in front of you. It's Defense Exhibit number 1.
No, I didn't know. She
Oh, may I approach the witness now?
Sure.
Here you go, ma'am.
Thank you. And I'm also approaching him with Plaintiff's Exhibit number 5 for his memory. Okay. These 3 are highlighted, the numbers. And these were the week of March 3rd to the 10th. So, are they tripled, if not doubled?
I'm not sure about triple. I might need a calculator for that. Math was never really.
Okay, but they're higher, correct?
Oh, yes.
And yet there's no problems with the scrubbers?
I believe there was a problem
There was
with
no problem with scrubbers.
If I could finish there, I believe there was a problem with the operation of the scrubbers, not the scrubber themselves.
What were the operations? What was the problem with the operations?
Well, I feel like the employee, Terry Payne, who was in charge of that, as I said earlier, wasn't necessarily trained in the most optimal way, and I feel like he misread the numbers and operated the scrubbers incorrectly.
So was there any proof of this that he stated? Did he state this, that he messed up, or do you have any proof of him messing up?
I'm not sure this trial is about Terry Payne.
Well, no, it's not. But what I'm asking is, so who's to say that's not the scrubber's fault?
We can speculate either way, I suppose.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. You can come down. Let's call the next witness. Come on, one of you. Whichever one's next.
At the time I was looking like you called Dr. Duplate's.
That you?
Do you swear to tell them the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? You see this?
Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Drew Fuentes.
And what is your educational background?
I received my PhD at the University of Yale Public School of Health in 1972.
Okay. And are you currently employed?
Yes, I am.
And where are you employed?
I'm a researcher and public health professor at the University of Industry, Briarglen.
How long have you been teaching there?
10 years.
Okay. What have you focused on during your career?
After I got my PhD, I spent the first 30 years researching the spread of infectious diseases, and in the past 5 years, I've switched my focus into air pollution.
Do you have any publications or any peer-reviewed articles that have been published?
Yes, I do. For infectious diseases, I have 50 peer-reviewed articles, and in the past 5 years of doing air pollution, I've had 3 peer-reviewed articles.
Have you done any studies during this time?
Yes, I have. One of them is the re-evaluation of Dr. Morgan Williams' study on the link between air quality and human health in Hazy Valley and the rest of the state of North Carolina.
Your Honor, at this time I would like to qualify Dr. Drew Fuentes as an expert in the field of public health.
Yeah, you want to offer as an expert in that area. What says the plan? No objection?
No
All right.
objection.
You may be allowed to testify as such.
Okay. You said you did a reevaluation of Dr. Morgan Williams' study. How are your findings different than those of Dr. Morgan Williams?
Well, first of all, she didn't do any indoor air quality samples. She only did outdoor air quality samples. And it has been proven lately that human health is affected by indoor air quality just as much as it is affected by outdoor air quality. So therefore, I think because she only did a evaluation of outdoor air quality, her studies cannot be taken very seriously because indoor air quality do play a major factor in human health. And we do spend a lot of time indoors.
Okay. What were your findings on indoor air quality in Hazy Valley?
Well, in Hazy Valley, particular Woodville, for indoor air quality, I found higher levels of mold, allergens, and cigarette smoke.
Okay. Are these things triggers or causes of asthma?
Yes, asthma is a respiratory disease that, through the inflammation of the lungs due to irritant, and mold, as well as cigarette smoke, as well as allergens, are all things that can trigger asthma.
Can they also cause other problems of human health?
Yes, other respiratory diseases.
Okay. How many households did you conduct your study on?
I did the same study as Dr. Morgan Williams, and I did the 100 people that she did, except instead of just doing outdoor air quality, I also did indoor air quality samples.
So you physically inspected 100 houses in Workville and Hazy Valley?
Not completely. I helped with a lot of them, and we used 2 types of sampling methods. We used something called a aerosol, which is a sampling cassette. It's a circular device, just like an air freshener. I rested in the corner of the room, and it has a medium inside of it, which picks up any mold, any allergens. It picks up any fibers from clothing, so I can see what is within the home, what is the quality of air within the home. And the next one that I did, I
I'm sorry, the
used
quality of the air with where?
within the home.
Home.
Home, okay.
And the next method I use is a Gillian air sample, which I just take an air quality sample, I collect it, I take it to the lab, and they do the rest.
Okay. Do you believe that asthma can be caused by outdoor air pollution?
There is no proven, there's nothing to prove what is caused by asthma. It's not proven yet what causes asthma.
Okay. Where did you receive your funding for your study and research of Hazy Valley?
I received a $2 million grant from the Industry Association, the Industry State Association, Factory Association, Industry State Factory Association, which I know Paleotech is part of.
Okay. Were there any conditions or restrictions put on your findings by these different groups?
No, they allow me to publish all my findings, no matter what it was.
Okay, and have you ever worked as an expert witness before?
No, this is my first time.
And are you being paid for your testimony today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Your witness.
How is the spread, or how does the parasite schizomyiasis spread?
This is an infectious disease in China, and this case is about air pollution in the United States.
Your thesis was on this, and we're talking about the spread of infectious disease and air pollution. I was just curious if you knew how schizomyelitis, since you wrote your thesis on it.
Objection, compound question.
Okay.
Objection, relevance.
All right, overruled, but rephrase your question.
Okay. Was your thesis on the parasite schizomyelitis?
Yes, it is.
All right, and how is this parasite spread throughout China?
Objection, relevant.
Overruled.
Well, this disease is caused through the airborne disease. It's an airborne disease that people collect and due to the amount of coal-fired power plants they have within China.
I think it's spread by crickets.
All right, we'll move on from that. Okay, so why did you switch your focus to air pollution 5 years ago after 25 years of working in another field?
Well, when I was studying the spread of infectious diseases, I realized how much air had a part to play in it, and the more that I work with infectious diseases, the more that I just wanted to know more about air pollution, air quality.
All right, so you said there's no known cause for asthma, right?
No, there's no proven cause of asthma.
All right. Do you believe mold could be a possible cause?
I don't believe mold can be a possible cause, but it can trigger
It can
asthma.
trigger.
And it has been proven to trigger asthma.
It's been proven to trigger, and how much mold must be present in order for it to trigger?
Not much how much has to be present, but that person has to be present in that area for a long, extensive period of time.
And does it have to be a significant amount of mold for that to happen, even if it was over a long period of time?
No, I mean, everybody body react differently. Just, people smoke cigarettes, not everyone is going to get cancer.
And you talked about when you were doing your indoor air analysis that you had something that you put in the room and just let it sit there, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe people would act differently since they know it's there?
I mean, it doesn't matter if they decide to skip around the room, it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to pick up the air particles that are passing through the room, the stuff that you can't see.
All right. So what did you do with this $2 million grant that you received from the North Carolina State Factories Association?
We also did surveys. We also had to spend a lot of money on getting these equipments that we needed to actually do these samples. We spent a lot of time trying to see what can actually cause asthma, so it was a lot of more research within that. So.
All right, and how did you do your testing in the other parts of the state?
The same thing.
Same thing, and what did the findings in the other part of the state say?
There were still levels of mold, there were still levels of allergens in the house, but not as much as Woodville. It was extremely high.
Why do you think it's so much higher in Woodville?
Well, I mean, these houses are old, and mold is basically associated with older houses, so that can possibly be a reason. And cigarette smoke, I guess people smoke in their houses. I really don't know what they do, how clean they are, so it's more dependent upon what that person does in their house, not what kind of house it is.
So there aren't older houses in other parts of the state?
I'm not saying no, I'm just saying there were higher levels of it.
All right.
In Woodville particular.
So you just, okay. Do you know what self-fulfilling prophecy is?
No.
All right, I'll explain it to you. Self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true by the very...
Objection, relevance.
Well, I don't know. Let him explain it first.
Yeah, so a self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true by the very terms of the prophecy itself. So basically that's saying if you believe something to be true strong enough, that it's going to become true. For example, let's say a coach expects his freshman to be uncoordinated and unskilled, so he doesn't play him, and then when he goes out to the field, he doesn't do well. He believed it wasn't going to happen, and it didn't happen. He didn't do well. So my question is, do you believe that since you wanted to find problems in Workville, that you found it?
I didn't decide to go looking for problems just because I realized that Dr. Morgan William only took outdoor air quality samples. I wanted to see for myself would indoor air quality samples also be different. That is why I did a re-evaluation of her study, and I didn't just do a study for myself again.
Why hers in particular?
Because she was the only study that was done in Woodville, and Hazy Valley.
And Workville has Paleotech present, correct?
And they also had past
Just
industries there.
was Paleotech present in Workville?
They are present now, but there were
No
also
further
factories
questions.
present in the past.
Go ahead and finish your question, your answer.
There were also other factories in the past, and you can't say just because there's one factory there now that that is the reason that there may be air quality problems now. FAIR is trying to say that asthma is caused by air pollution, and it cannot be proven that air pollution is the cause of asthma. Asthma can be triggered by air pollution, but there is no proven cause in this world as yet, as far as scientists can possibly say, that air pollution is actually the cause of asthma.
But there's no proof that there's any indoor cause either, correct?
No, but there is proof that it can trigger.
Trigger.
Both indoor and outdoor air quality can trigger asthma. And mold, allergens, and cigarette smoke, which was all present in Woodville at higher levels, can actually prove that it can affect people because it's at higher level.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Further questions?
All right, go your next witness. Thank you, ma'am. Be careful coming down. She's gonna tell the truth. Come on. Is this Casey?
Oh, Casey David.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Dr. Casey David.
And what is your field of expertise?
I am an air monitoring expert.
And what exactly is that?
We look at pollution in the air, see where it comes from, see where it goes.
And are you currently employed?
Yes.
And who with?
I'm employed with the North Carolina EPA Air Office.
And how long?
I worked there, I started as an intern about 19 years ago, and I worked my way up to supervisor about 9 years ago.
And do you know what air pollution computer modeling is?
Yes.
Can you briefly explain that?
Air pollution computer modeling, there are several different kinds that are out there. It's pretty much you can either with a dispersion model you can see the source of the pollution and see where it goes, or with the receptor model you can see where the pollution is in the air and try to track the source. It pretty much looks at meteorological things, time of day, all that kind of stuff.
And within the air pollution modeling field, is this a recognized professional area of expertise?
Yes, it is.
And is there any controversy within the profession about the efficiency or reliability of this field of expertise?
It really just depends on which model you use.
What is your educational background?
I graduated from Stanford University in 1989 with a PhD in computer programming.
Have you attended any or conducted any education seminars, conferences, or training?
We have to go to yearly seminars to update ourselves in the latest operating systems and software and those kind of things.
Are you a member of any professional organizations or societies?
I'm a member of the NAP, the National Association of Programmers, and the ACM, which is the Association of Computing Machinery.
Have you received any awards or other professional recognition?
I received the Turing Award in 2006 for my contributions to computer modeling and programming.
Have you published any articles in your field?
I've published a few articles per se, but I'm a more hands-on person and I really just let my work speak for itself.
And based on this education that you have and your experience, are you able to give an opinion as to air pollution modeling?
Yes, I am.
And within your field of expertise, is it common for a practitioner to give an opinion as to the computer methods for the simulation of air quality processes?
Yes, several of my colleagues have testified before, and this is the first time I've actually testified, so yeah.
Your Honor, at this time I would like to qualify Dr. Casey David as an air monitoring expert in the field of air pollution modeling.
Any objection?
No, Your
Or
Honor.
offering her as an expert in that field?
Yes. No, Your
All
Honor.
right, court will allow her to testify as such.
Is air pollution modeling complicated?
That's the understatement of the century. Yes, it's very complicated.
Would you care to briefly elaborate on that a little bit, please?
There are several different factors that you have to take into account. One can be meteorological, the weather patterns, especially in a particular area, the source emissions, which can be the physical or chemical properties of the pollutant, time, also other things such as terrain, numerous other things.
And earlier you stated that there are different air pollution modeling types. You
Mhm.
mentioned the dispersion model and the receptor model.
Mhm.
Which air pollution model does North Carolina EPA Air Office use?
We use a dispersion model.
And can you elaborate a little bit further on that?
The dispersion model is the model that looks at the source of the pollution and sees where the source disperses out into the area through the air, which is kind of why it's called a dispersion model.
Would it be helpful in order to further your explanation to utilize an exhibit
Yes, it
of
will.
your model?
Can I get down and get my things?
Sure.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am. What exhibit is that?
Your Honor, this is going to be defense exhibit number 2.
Okay, it has a plain sticker on it. Is there a reason for that?
Defendant's exhibit.
You need a blue sticker.
No, it's blue.
Let me see just a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, the text sticker's yellow. All right. Any objection?
Later on.
All right, it's admitted. You got another one too?
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get it into.
Okay,
Okay.
Your Honor, I would like to,
You gonna show both sides of that one?
yes,
All right.
defense exhibit number 3,
Any objection to that?
the other side.
And then we got one more, right?
Yes, and defense exhibit number 4.
Any objection to that? That's fine. All right, sorry to talk to the jury, but speak loudly and clearly so that all of us can hear you.
The dispersion model that the North Carolina EPA uses is actually one that I created. It's called CalPuff. I actually created it while I was at Stanford University. It's CalPuff. The dispersion model that I have has 3 different parts. The very first part is the meteorological standpoint, which takes into account the weather of the day, the actual pollution emissions that were emitted at that time, pretty much all of the data in it. The second part is the actual model, which is what you see before you. This is the model of Paleotech's pollution. And as you can see, none of their pollution is, I guess, per se, in the red.
That's fine.
None of their pollution is in the red, or is bad, or is over their limit, per se.
Is Hazy Valley considered, or please explain a non-attainment area?
A non-attainment area is an area in which there is one or more criteria pollutants over the limit set by the Clean Air Act.
And is Hazy Valley considered a non-attainment area?
Yes, it is considered a non-attainment area for 4 of the criteria pollutants: sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, and ozone.
Okay, and which of those 4 then criteria pollutants come from Paleotech?
Paleotech produces particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide.
Okay, so that's 3, but there's 4 in Hazy Valley. So how is the 4th criteria pollutant found in Hazy Valley?
The fourth criteria pollutant actually comes into the third part of what CalPUF is, which is the post-processing programs. And the post-processing programs show all of the pollutants in the area. And there are really two different kinds of, I guess you could say, wind patterns that can bring in pollutants. North Carolina is in the westerlies, which means that all of the pollutants, or all of the air, comes from the south and the west and moves toward the north and the east, as you can see by that line, which is where a big majority of the concentration of pollutants come from. The other wind factor is the mountain valley. On a pretty much daily basis, in the mornings the air rises into the top of the mountains, and at night the air comes back down into the valley, and that is shown by the little ones.
Is it a threat to public health and safety that Paleotech is just upwind of Yorkville?
No, not necessarily. This is a chart of where all of the pollution in Hazy Valley comes from. And as you can see, not only by the second map, but also this, only 25% of the pollutants that are in Hazy Valley come from within Hazy Valley. And out of that section, only 50% of that 25, so technically 12%, comes from Paleotech. The other half of that comes from cars and other mobile sources.
As far as the air pollution modeling software, we heard earlier that for the receptor model that it's a computer that physically takes air samples. Is that true?
No. Okay, let me back up. For North Carolina EPA Air Office, I don't actually go out and take the models. I did when I was an intern, so I know a little bit of how it works. For our office, we're undermanned, understaffed, overworked, the typical. And so we only are able to go out and actually take air samples every 2 to 3 years. But how you take the sample, it's pretty much a little box, and it has water in it. And you let the machine run for, let's say, 8 hours. And there's some chemicals that are in the water, and they help capture the, let's just say, for example, the particulate matter that's in the air for that day. So you let the machine sit it out, you let it run for 8 hours. After the 8 hours is over, you take the water out, along with the little chemicals. You put an indicator in there, which is another chemical. You put the indicator in there, and then you can tell by a color-coded chart what level it is.
And then what do you do with that level, with that data?
And then with that data, you put it into the modeling program. In mine, it would be, you put it into the first part, and then as soon as you get all of your data for the year or whatever, then it computes everything and it goes into the second part, which is the actual model.
Thank you. Where does your office get your emissions data from, since you don't go out to the field and collect it?
We get it from the self-reporting data of the pollution power plants.
Okay. And does Paleotech's permit to operate in accordance with North Carolina Clean Air Act protect public health and safety?
Yes, it does.
Can you explain what a tradable permits program is?
A tradable permits program is pretty much
you can sit down now if you like.
The tradable permits program is pretty much a credit-based system that companies can sell their credits or buy their credits for their emissions to still stay within their permit.
In your expert opinion, do you feel that if in fact Paleotech is granted this allowance, that it will affect Hazy Valley in any way?
It will affect Hazy Valley.
And okay, so if it does, then can you explain how?
It will, in my personal professional opinion, help Hazy Valley out a lot. As you can tell from the cute little pie chart, only 25% of the sources come from within Hazy Valley. So that means that the other 75% of the sources come from other parts of the state, even other states. So if the other parts of the state drop their emissions, then it won't really have that much effect, especially since Paleotech is only producing roughly 12% of it. So the other parts will shrink and essentially help out the air pollution in Hazy Valley.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross?
Did you conduct any surveys within Workville or Hazy Valley?
No, I didn't.
So, so who sent you the reports that you're basing all of your information off of?
The companies, the power plants, the companies that have emissions, they send them to us.
So, you're just kind of taking their word for it?
Pretty much. We haven't had many problems with their data. And we do go out every 2 to 3 years to make sure, just check up, make sure something's not really off or anything. So.
What? Okay. Is it true that due to budget limitations within the EPA, the models are based on self-reporting emissions data of the
Yes.
companies? It's basically what you just said. Does this not bring up the concern of mistakes within the companies?
It does. We've had several other companies in other parts of the state that have been horrible with their emissions data. They've, on almost a weekly or monthly basis, send in the wrong reports, and we have to get on them. Paleotech has been one of the few really good ones that have always sent in the reports on time, always, made sure that they were correct, so.
So Paleotech's never messed up their emissions?
We had one problem back in 2004 that the wrong week was sent in, but I guess I don't expect everybody to be 100%. I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And especially for one that runs such a tight ship that especially we don't get many faults from them.
Have you ever made a mistake while recording emissions data?
For mine, I don't actually go out and get the data. I do make sure, or at least try to make sure that all of my employees double check, triple check all their information. And if we do ever have a problem, we try to fix it ASAP.
So have you ever overlooked an employee?
Not really, no.
So you're perfect in your job?
I mean, I'm human like everyone else, I mean, I make mistakes, and if I make mistakes, I try to correct it, or if I see mistakes, I try to correct it, sort of like Jordan Rogers.
How would you define Hazy Valley and Workville's air quality?
Honestly, it sucks. It's not good. It's a non-attainment area, so it's already above the safe limits. And I know that Paleotech's permit is a lot stricter than a lot of the other permits in the area, and so.
Okay, so would you say that Hazy Valley and Workville are in violation of the Clean Air Act?
In order to be in violation of the Clean Air Act, to my knowledge, it has to happen multiple times. And I could be wrong about that. But to my knowledge, from my years of experience, if you have 1 week where the numbers are off, it's not technically in violation of the Clean Air Act through their laws. It has to happen multiple times. So.
But didn't this happen in 2004?
In 2004, just the wrong week was sent. So in 2004, they weren't over their limits.
Okay. In your findings, how far over the limits were each of the particulate, for each of the pollutants in the air?
It depended on which pollutant. I think for particulate matter, it was about 35% over the limit. For sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide, it was about 45-50% over the limit.
Okay. And were you 100% sure of where each of these pollutants were coming from?
You can never be 100% sure of where anything comes from, really. All you can do, especially with the dispersion model, is see the source and track it outwards. But does that kind of answer your question?
No, you weren't 100% sure.
No, you can never be 100%
Okay.
sure.
That's the right thought.
I have no further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You can come down, be careful. The last witness? Okay. Rebuttal or closings?
They're doing closings.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you'll now be privileged to hear the arguments of the attorneys and their closing arguments. If the attorneys attempt to restate a portion of the evidence and your recollection is different from the attorneys, you are to be guided exclusively by your own recollection. Who will close for y'all? One closing, and who goes last?
They go first and they go last. I know it's opposite of what you
Well, that's fine, you're the teacher.
Good?
You're good.
All right, you may proceed.
All right, we can sit up here all day long and argue about what causes asthma and the lung disease or whatever, but we're here for two main reasons. To prove that Paleotech has violated their Clean Air Act permit, which they have with their numbers, you guys have the evidence that says that, and for an injunction for them not to get this tradable permits program, because we believe that it will cause more harm than is already being caused. They say that indoor pollution problems are going to be causing most of the problems, such as smoking and mold. But we've been smoking in houses and airplanes prior to all of this. Before we've had dogs, animals. They say that danders are the trigger, whatever, which they are. But the point I'm making is, what is the point I'm making? But no. Anyways, there was one link that wasn't here prior to that until the 1980s. That is Paleotech. Asthma, the number of rates of asthma in Workville and the Hazy Valley have grown since Paleotech has been there. I mean, it's not a coincidence to say that once a company comes in and pushes 3 other factories out, it's not a coincidence at that point. And they say, oh, it has to happen 2 times to be a problem in the Clean Air Act, but as you will read in their Clean Air Act permit, nowhere does it say that. It says that if they do not have the duty to comply, if they do not follow that duty, that they are grounds for civil and criminal accusations, which is why we're here today. So this is why Paleotech, they have violated their permit, and we are asking to think about the people like Devin Jackson, who has never had a really strong voice because he lived in the low-income neighborhoods, but finally stepped up to the plate and said, I'm tired of the pollution, and I want it to stop. And that's all we're asking from Paleotech, is to lower their emissions. And they're going to say that, oh, it's financially impossible to do that, but yet they give 10% back to the community.
that 10% can go towards the new scrubbers and new equipment. So all I ask of you today is to use your common sense and say that they don't need to be releasing such high emissions. They don't need this new tradable permits. I want to thank you all for coming today on behalf of myself and the plaintiff team as well as the defendants. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cox.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today we have heard from several witnesses from both the plaintiffs and the defendants. The defendants have attempted to prove that we are in violation of our Clean Air Act permit and that we are a nuisance to the Hazy Valley. Unfortunately for the plaintiffs, they have failed to do so. The first accusation that's been brought against us is that we have violated our Clean Air Act permit. This has only happened one time. Jordan Rogers explained why we are in violation of the contract for that week. Our scrubbers have been having problems, and we believe they were due to our unexperienced employees and untrained employees. CJ Lee is an unreliable witness. He stole documents from our client and brought them to a private organization. He also broke his contract with the EPA, which is a federal organization. The second accusation that they have brought against us is that we are a nuisance to Hazy Valley. Both expert witnesses, Dr. Alex Martinez and Dr. Casey David, both experts in the field of air pollution monitoring, have shown that they cannot 100% prove that air pollution, or that the air pollution in Hazy Valley is coming from Paleotech. They cannot prove that. Also, Casey David showed that the proper way of using computer software, and that computers do not actually take air samples themselves. It's a whole different device. Let's see. Dr. Morgan Williams and Dr. Drew Fuentes, both experts in the field of public health, showed that there is no known cause of asthma that can be proven 100%. Okay. Morgan Williams' study that she did on Hazy Valleys has some major holes in it. First, she did not do an extensive study of the indoor air quality in Hazy Valley. This is a very important thing because it has been shown that indoor air quality can have the same effect as outdoor air quality, if not greater. Dr. Drew Fuentes redid the reevaluation of this study and showed high levels of mold and toxins in these homes. Let's see. Devin Jackson is angry. He's angry because his children are sick. This isn't something he should be angry about, but our client is not who should be blamed for this. He has admitted that many people in Hazy Valley do not take care of their homes as well as him and his wife do. He has also admitted that many people in Hazy Valley smoke and have pets and do not exercise as often as they should. So today I ask you, members of the jury, does Paleotech deserve to be blamed for these things? Are they causing this air pollution? Or is it just the citizens of Hazy Valley and Workville attributing to their own negligence? Thank you for your time.
God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send you to the jury room with just a few instructions. You've got two questions to answer. First of all, did Paleotech violate their permit? And second of all, is the plaintiff entitled to an injunction? Your first job when you get back there is to elect one of your members to be your foreperson. Let that person lead your deliberations, and then you come out and you can either give me a written answer or an oral answer. Remember, Somewhere in the facts of every case, the truth abides. And where truth is, justice steps in, garbed in its robes, and tips the scales. In this case, you have no friend to reward, you have no anger to appease, you have no enemy to punish, or sorrow to assuage. Yours is a solemn duty to let your verdict speak the everlasting truth. Madam Bailiff, take him to the jury. All right, we'll do a little critique for as long as we have before they come back. First of all, remember that everything I say is just an opinion. It is an opinion backed up by 30 years of being a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and a judge. I'll try to get some of the points that we talked about in class. The good news and the bad news is the same, and it always is. Y'all were very, very good. In fact, some of you were better than the attorneys I've seen this week. And that's the good news and the bad news. Let's start with Megan on your opening. Good voice, good start. Pace was a little too fast. It was hard for me to understand your case. And you got to remember, you've been studying this case. You know everything about it. They don't know anything about it, and I don't know anything about it either. And you've got to explain it to them. We talked when I came out to Ms. Vonnegut's class that sometimes you're so involved in the case and know it so well that you skip over things, that you don't let the jury know. And with most jurors, you got to tell them 2, 3, 4 times for them to get it. I liked the quote, morals over principles. I was hoping to hear that later on. Remember, I talked about everything we do in trial builds to our closing. Sometimes you don't need to get to the ultimate point in your direct or cross-examination because you're going to get to it in your closing. So everything should build up to your closing, and I was hoping very much to hear that line from whoever did your closing. I think it was Nick. Morals over principle. That was good. I said, I hope you come back to that or something like it, such as, we will ask you to choose morals over convenience, or morals over profits, or morals over cheap power. I think that would have been good. In short, very good. Stephanie, opening, great voice, great confidence. Pace was a little too fast. You gave the other side of the story, the cost and the benefit. I like that. You humanized, and it's hard to say that you're humanizing a company, but you humanize or personalize the company. It's not just some big and personal company. It has value, it has worth, it does something beneficial for our society. I didn't understand some of the figures y'all were throwing out, and figures in an opening statement probably aren't necessary. At one point you said a majority of the workers, and then you said 20%. That was a little confusing. You got a little bit nervous about halfway through, you were going great, and you lost your train of thought, and that happens to even the best of people. Happened to you in your closing. There's nothing wrong with taking your notes over there. You can't memorize this. You can't memorize this unless you are very, very good. Every closing I ever did, I had a pad with me. Like I said, the numbers and the percentages were not necessary in opening, and they were a little confusing. All right, witness Devin Jackson, where is he or she? Okay, very good. Great voice. You were very calm. You sounded very real, very genuine. I could just see you and your little kids without your dog in your house with your wife looking out the front door at the white picket fence. I mean, you sounded truly very real. You took questions well, good answers, and you did not lash out when they were making points on your cross-examination. Megan, good voice, good questions, good questioning pace. What does that say? You directed the witness well. You clarified him at times. But, and I told you this, and you'll notice it even when I'm speaking, every one of us almost has that tick, or has that thing you say. You say "and" in front of every question. And. And it gets a little unnerving. Now, they're going to watch the tape of this, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's going to be on the internet.
Y'all are going to be surprised at some of the things you say and do. You started almost every question with "and." Missed the hearsay objection. They asked a question that was clearly hearsay, but sometimes you don't object. Sometimes you want that information to come out. And cross, Dylan, you say okay. Okay in front of every question. No, you finished every question with okay. Of course, it was hard to tell because sometimes you said okay at the end of the question and went right into the next question. Good voice and good questioning on cross. CJ Lee, where is he or she? Back there. Great voice, great demeanor, very believable. I'm always amazed at how sometimes I get lost in this. I forget for just an instant that this isn't real, that y'all aren't real witnesses coming in here helping these kids. You're actually students. You're actually people out there in the community who aren't these people that you're playing in court. I mean, you were very, very believable. You sounded just like a real person, a real witness. You protected yourself on cross. Now, both sides failed to protect their witnesses very well. But when they were hammering at you, you said, no, 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 and you stopped them. That's what a witness needs to do. Direct examination by Nick, good voice, very professional appearance and demeanor. You say okay, 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 okay. You messed up on the exhibit a little bit, but you got better on number 2. And I understand you guys aren't lawyers. And even the lawyers have trouble with exhibits sometimes. There's a particular way you have to go through. I talked about it in Ms. Vonnegut's class. There's a particular language, particular things you have to say. All in all, great job of comparing the numbers, the exhibits, and getting to the point. Numbers are very hard for jurors to understand, but you did a good job on that. Cross-examination, Ms. Buffalo, y'all let in an exhibit that had highlighting on it. Okay, never do that. Don't let them bring the jury's attention unnecessarily. Exhibit number 5. And a lot of times y'all didn't look at each other's exhibits. You just kind of went, well, okay, let it in. And that's fine, because maybe the exhibit helps you. And I understand we're compressing a huge trial down into a very small time. You asked leading questions, good objections. No, I'm sorry, where you objected because of a leading question. That was a good objection. And I should have sustained it, but I didn't want to. I overruled it. And a lot of the things I did and said in here were to ease the tension, also to keep the thing moving along, and also to catch you off guard a little bit. So when I overruled your objection to leading, which I shouldn't have, then you never made another objection about leading. They continued to do it. I probably would at some point have began to sustain this objection. Great objection on speculation. That was clearly speculation, and that was a good point. All of you need a little bit more work on paying attention to the exhibits. I think I already said that. What does this say? Cross from, is it Mr. Bine?
Yeah.
Tell me how you pronounce it.
Bien.
Bien, Mr. Bien. Good voice, great questions. You say okay, okay, okay. The vendetta objection. That was not appropriate, but it was a good way to stop them. You interrupted their flow. And I think this is for CJ Lee, good defendant, good for defendant. Yes or no, yes or no. I'm not sure what that is. Oh. It's not proper to say, just give me a yes or no answer. And both sides did that, and neither side protected your witness. You can always say, Your Honor, let him finish that answer. And one of the witnesses, I think I got a little bit later on, did protect themselves. But saying, just give me a yes or no, that's not proper. Okay. I'm not sure who this is. This may be, I think I'm on the same witness here. Yeah. We're still on CJ Lee. Yeah, did not defend witness. All right. Nick, do you have asthma? Great. And then you followed it up with some questions about whether they had asthma or not. That was great. Then you started saying but, cutting off, no, you were cutting off the answer, okay? I like the question that you asked, I think I'm on the same witness, about eyeballing it. I love word pictures, eyeballing it. You did,
That's on this side, yeah.
okay, is that the other side? All right.
I mean, I'll take the credit.
Yeah, that's Miss Buffalo, right? Is that? I don't know. I take horrible names. Anyway, whoever talked about eyeballing it, you didn't really examine it. You just kind of eyeballed it, didn't you? I mean, that's a great phrase for jurors, eyeballing it. you know, he didn't really look at it. He didn't examine it. He didn't know what he's talking about. He just kind of eyeballed it. Yeah, man, that looks all right. But once again, you need to come back to that in your closing. Ask questions. A couple of you did this. You asked questions that you didn't know the answer to. Somebody asked, how do you know the scrubs are old? Jordan Roberts told me. Okay. That may be good because Jordan Roberts didn't testify, right? But you got in some testimony of Jordan Roberts, right?
Jordan Rogers. Yeah.
Jordan Rogers. That person didn't testify, right?
They
did.
They did? Okay. Direct exam, Nick. Did they violate it? That was a great question. That was the redirect. Okay. All right. Marga Williams. Who's that? Morgan Williams. All right. Listen. That's you? Yeah. Okay. Having a little fun. You know. Offered you a little drink from the Methodist College Cup. Very good voice. Very confident. You letting me lighten things up a little bit. You kind of played off me a little bit. You knew your part, you were very knowledgeable, and you explained it in an understandable way. You had a good explanation about getting asthma from a puppy. I like that. You don't get asthma from the puppy, but the puppy may trigger the asthma. Once again, that was a great phrase. You explained asthma pretty well, even though you're not a real expert. Brandon Brown, right there. Good voice. This is on your direct of her. Good voice. Did not let me sidetrack you too much. I was asking her if she'd ever been here before because I wanted somebody to say, have you ever testified as a witness before? And when I asked her, you ever been here before? She said, no. I said, you never testified before? No. But then later on, it came out that you did. So I don't know how we got confused, but I was trying to give you a hint. One of the ways to get the expert qualified is the number of times they've testified in court before. So we got off to a little slow start there. I was testing you. The visual aid was a bit confusing. What was the visual aid for her?
It was to show that 10% more people in Haiti.
Yeah, with the little stick figures, a little bit. Yeah, that was a little confusing. But if you can give the jury a picture, it usually helps. I like this. I like the question you asked her. You said, in your expert opinion, da-da-da-da-da-da, re-emphasizing that she's an expert and that the jury should listen to what she's getting ready to say. Holy moly, this is going to be important. She's giving us an expert opinion, directing the attention to the answer that you wanted. Cross was Dylan. You say, okay, okay. Then you started saying, and then you started saying, and. And that's fine. I've done it myself right here when I'm talking to you. Yes or no, once again, that's good for you to say that. Give me a yes or no answer because they didn't catch you. It's not proper to do it, but you got away with it. They didn't stop you. Why? You should not have asked why. Don't ask why. Save these things for closing. She held her own, back to Miss Williams. She held her own very well with you. But once again, the question that you ask her about why, you don't care what her answer is. That's the question you ask the jury. When Dr. Williams was up here, did you ever wonder why she did this or why she did that or why she had an opinion? And $400. The next question I would ask her is, for the day or an hour?
I gave like a 50% discount, but they didn't ask that question.
For the day or per hour? Okay? She wouldn't have known. I mean, that's a lot of money. At some point during your closings, you got to hit, of course, now both of you have experts, but you got to hit, we got a verdict yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. You got to hit these experts being paid. Alex Martinez, where is he or she? Okay, very good. Your voice was a little low to start with. You let me get you off track a little bit. I asked you some questions, I think, and got you off track.
I should have warned you that when you said NC State,
Yeah.
that you were going to get some grief.
When I said the University of North Carolina located at Raleigh, you should have said, no, North Carolina State University, home of the Worth Pack, NCAA champions, 1972 and 83. Any other questions, Judge? That's fine.
But then knowing that Judge Ammons is a huge Tar Heel fan.
Yes.
You knew your part very well. You, once you got through with messing with me, you had a great grasp of the figures and the facts. Paleotech, what does that say? Something, I can't read that. Oh, the answer that they ask you about Paleotech, you let your voice slip down a little bit. That was the nail in their coffin. And I can't remember what the question was, but the answer was, you said Paleotech? Almost questioningly. You should have said Paleotech, because that was the nail in the coffin of the other side. Great job on the map, and you explained the credit system very well. I thought that was great. Nick, good voice, still need a little more work on qualifying experts. Example, have you testified before? We talked about that. You clarified her testimony very well. You had a good pace, and you directed your questions well. You should have asked a question that I did about Paleotech. I must have asked a question. Approach the jury. Who said that? One of the jurors said that, right? All right, Miss Buffalo, very professional, made good points on cross, very good. You went too far. Once again, a couple of you did this. You made good points on cross, and then you went too far. And it's always a great idea when the teacher says, time to stop. It's an even greater idea when the judge begins to look bored to stop. You had a great cross, but it went too long, and you lost some points. And then at the end, particularly when she said time, you should have waved the white flag. Cameron Chew, you were a little stiff, but that's okay for the president of an evil corporation. I mean, you sounded just like the president of an evil corporation. You were very knowledgeable and knew your part very well. You handled the mistake between the testimony and the depo very well. There was a difference between your depo testimony and your testimony here, and you handled that discrepancy very well. Mr. Bien, again, good job at leading and characterizing Paleotech. Got lots of detail out of this witness. Very professional dialogue between you and her. And I begin to kind of suspect that maybe the two of you had practiced a lot prior. Did you? Yeah, it showed. It showed that y'all were in sync with each other. Megan, on cross, I think, good voice. You had prepared and you knew about the difference between the depo and the testimony here. A lot of times, real lawyers don't get that. They just kind of glance over the depo, they don't make notes, and then when they say something different here at trial, they don't catch it. And that really is devastating to a case when the witnesses say, well, he said such and such. Yeah, but then depo, he said something else. You know, jurors focus in on the craziest little things like that. Very professional cross. You lost some points on the last series of questions. Once again, you went too far. You needed to save a little bit of that for closing. And when you were having problems at the end there, the jury was getting the point. Yeah. You didn't need the answer. You should have said, when they kept objecting, I withdraw the question. Okay. And then kind of look at the jury. And then come back to that in your closing. Particularly about how much do you make. That's the one question I would have asked her. Remember I said, I had some questions, but I didn't want to answer. You know, they're talking about they can't afford to put scrubbers in. You know, they're doing this, that, and the other. I think I would have said, you're still getting your salary, right? Or how much do you make again? You know, something to say, you know, there's always something they could have cut. She's talking about all these bad things that would happen if they spent the money. And to me, that was the key point. My goodness. Fix the scrubbers that have been broken since, what, 2006 or something? Jordan Rogers, who's that? Okay. Very good voice, very good demeanor, and you turned appropriately to the jury. They'd ask you questions, and occasionally you would turn, and you would explain it to them. They'd ask you questions, and occasionally you didn't turn. If you turn every time, you look fake. If you don't turn sometimes, particularly when you're explaining, then the jurors can't really understand it. But you had great demeanor, just like a real professional witness should do. You were very knowledgeable, and you made a good impression. You wanted to look at an exhibit. They were asking you a question about an exhibit, and rather than just saying, you said, well, you know, let me see that. Witnesses very often fall into this. They'll ask them some question and often mischaracterize the exhibit, and they'll go, yeah, oh yeah, look at that exhibit. That was great. Oh, and you protected yourself. At one point, they were trying to cut you off, and you said, if I could finish, that was great. That's what a witness needs to do, particularly when you're attorney's not protecting you. Ms. Buffalo, again, great voice. You were saying and. But even with that, you were getting good points out, you were getting good questions, and you had great pace. You explained the mix-up, and that was good. Then you went and again. You guys were really, okay. You guys, I'm serious. When you look at the tape, you're going to be surprised. You're going to go, I don't talk that way. And then you'll see yourself saying and, or okay. Like I said, I do it myself. Cross, Nick, good cross, and you made great points. Drew Fuentes, although I don't think that's the way you pronounce the name. You were very knowledgeable and you sounded very professional. Where are you from? Tobago? Trinidad, Tobago. Okay. To me, the accent, and of course, if I go to Trinidad and Tobago, I got a strange accent, but here I don't. The accent adds credibility to you. And it's amazing how sometimes jurors will, if the person who is testifying as an expert has an accent different from what they're used to, they think that person is smarter, or they think that person is more knowledgeable. I don't know why, but studies have shown that about jurors. You got caught, and he got you. He got you on the thesis. I can't believe he put that much preparation into it, but he did. He got you on the thesis because you actually didn't write a thesis. But you did a good job on the rest of the cross. And you fought back. Toward the end of the cross, you were fighting back. You were not letting him beat you down. You were lashing back out at him in an appropriate way and making your points. Dylan, direct examination of her, good direct, good questions. It was great to get the bad points out ahead of time. My God, they gave her $2 million to make this study. She'd never testified before, and she was being paid for her testimony. All bad points for your witness, but you got them out. You brought them out rather than them saying, aha, you got $2 million, didn't you? And you've never testified before, and you're being paid today. Now, they're all still bad points, but they're not as bad when you bring them out, so that was good. Brendan, you gotcha. That was a great job. I like that. $2 million. What did you get for it? Or you ask her something like that. What did you get for it? What did you do with it? That was great. Now, at this point, I thought you should have gone a little further. So there's a delicate balance between going too far on cross and not going far enough. I thought you should have gone a little bit further. Did you get paid out of that $2 million? You got money out of that? And you're getting paid for your testimony today. So you're kind of still getting paid for that survey you did, aren't you? You know, just kind of nailed that she is just a professional expert witness coming in here and prostituting her opinion for money. Okay? That's how you want to characterize experts. Let's see. Witness Casey David, okay? Very relaxed, very good voice. You say, Started every answer with, Watch the tape. You were very personable, very real, just like a real expert. And you were, and I don't mean any offense by this, but you were kind of quirky. Just like a real expert is sometimes. They're quirky sometimes.
Judge Ammons, do you remember that she was our quirky anthropologist last spring?
The 76-year-old ear anthropologist?
Oh yeah, I do remember that. So you're quirky even in real life, right? Just like a real expert, and then what you, instead of saying again, you started saying and. But you were very good, very natural, and I can't tell you how believable every single witness was. I mean, I truly do get caught up in your testimony. Still no verdict?
Yeah, they're going back and forth.
Okay. Ms. Buffalo, good questions. Good qualifying questions of her. You asked excellent qualifying questions. Still got hung up with the language a little bit. You don't say, every one of you said the same thing. I offered to qualify.
I tender.
I tender this witness as an expert, or offer this witness as an expert, rather than I'd like to qualify this witness as an expert. That's what you should have just been doing.
Which is confusing because when we talk about classes, say you need to qualify them.
Yeah.
So it's easy to misinterpret and go, oh, I need to qualify them and use that language. So that's something attorneys do too. I wanna
Yeah, I mean,
qualify
this is
them.
not law school.
So,
You're not
yeah.
lawyers. And I'm truly amazed at the skill that you have and the ability that you have. So I don't want you to think I'm picking on you. Great exam, still on Miss Buffalo. Great exam of an expert. That's it. That's how you need to examine an expert. Megan again, on Cross. No surveys in the Hazy Valley. Good. Got into, you got into talking about the power plants. That was good. Taking their, you said you're kind of taking their word for it, aren't you? That was good. Self-reporting. Good. They make mistakes. Good. I mean, the Cross was just excellent. Then you went too far.
Okay.
It's tempting even for lawyers. I can't tell you how many real lawyers I hear do 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of excellent cross-examination and then cover it up with 30 minutes of mess because they don't know when to stop. All of your questions to begin with were very good, and then you went a little too far, and I kind of wanted to hope a sign that said stop. Some of it you needed to save for closing. But like I said, that's a mistake attorneys make all the time. Nick, on your closing. Great start. You jumped up and said, okay, let's get to the point. There's 2 main reasons we're here. They're violating their permit, and we need this injunction. And that was really the first time that anybody talked about what you really wanted from this jury. I mean, all of you were telling interesting stories about this, but the jury kind of needs to know, and particularly since I didn't give them any written instructions, what do you want? I mean, very often I'll listen to a case like this in a bench trial, and I'll say, just tell me what you want. Tell me why I shouldn't give it to them. You know, that's really what closing is when you, with the jury. You talked a little too fast, and you started talking faster than you were thinking, and that's when you lost your place and got a little out of sorts. And once again, you're nervous. You want to go ahead and get it out. You got it in your mind. You're trying to memorize it. It's okay to go slow. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you why we've been here for the last 3 hours. Because this evil corporation over here is spewing poison to the kids of Happy Valley, Hazy Valley, wherever it is. You don't have to do it.
It was Happy Valley.
Where do you say they're happy now?
Happy Valley has become Hazy Valley. All right, Dylan, closing. Good voice, good pace. You laid out what plaintiff tried to prove. You said they've tried to prove this, and then you laid out why they didn't prove it. You were going great, and then you lost your place. There's nothing wrong with using notes, and you were saying I did like this. You said...
they're giving me looks, Judge Amos, because I refuse to let them use their notes. You've had all semester. This is your story.
I had one day to do
You
open
did have
statement.
one day. But I will say that this has been your entire class. You guys have lived and breathed and slept on this. And to be honest with you, on a high school level, Jordan will tell you back there that when they compete in the trial court level, oh no, you shut the nose, you just lost in my eyes. You should know this, you know, and I tell you every year, it's just a story, tell your story, just get up there. You knew it, Dylan, you knew it, all of you knew it. And you don't need those notes, just tell me
Well,
one
that's
sentence.
why I came in this morning with the cup and the pencils and because I've seen a couple people get up and just freeze.
Yeah.
This should be relaxing. This is the end of this assignment, all right? This should be relaxing. I'm not going to put any of you in jail today, all right? I promise. You know, and she's either going to give every one of you an A or every one of you a B because we worked out a deal, right? Yeah. Okay, something like that. So I wanted you to relax, and I know it's intimidating coming into a courtroom like this, particularly when she's telling you something different than I do. I think notes are okay. But she's the teacher. I'm the judge, but she's the teacher. All right. What I liked very much about the ending of your closing was you looked at the plaintiff and you pointed at him and you said he's angry, and we can understand that, but don't blame our client because he's angry. All right. Remember I talked about in class, you need to give those jurors a nail to hang their hat on. You need to give them a reason to find for your side. They can like him, they can feel sorry for him, but it's not my client's fault. I'm sorry his child has asthma. I'm sorry he lives in Happy Valley or Hazy Valley, where the air is not that great. But it's not my client's fault. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine what his life would be like if my client didn't exist? As he wanders from room to room with a candle, cursing the darkness because there is no power. He has to go out and pump the water out of the well because there is no power. Put it off on something else. Give them a reason to find for you. Got a verdict? A hung jury.
No. Can you write out question number 2? Can you write out the 2 questions for them, please? They're confused.
Well, I'll let you write them out because they won't be able to read what I wrote out.
No, you write them out. I'll help tell them what they are.
Did they violate their permit, and is the plaintiff entitled to an injunction?
Okay.
No, it was saying that we were. Yeah, I mean.
That's how I charged them. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did they violate the permit, right?
Yes.
Is that not the question?
And if we were a nuisance.
I thought it was the tradable permits part. If you guys.
Yeah, that was what you guys were.
I thought you were asking for an injunction. That's what you said you closed.
Yeah, they were asking for.
I'm just kidding.
Anyway, listen. I know that y'all are all invested in the trial and you all want to win, and we want to have an answer. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you've had fun doing this and that you've learned something from it. And like I said, and I tell her every time.
This was not fun.
I had fun.
This today was
Okay, let me tell you this. If you had fun doing this, then this may be something you want to pursue. If you didn't have fun doing it, if you hated it, then just get through with this course and don't ever take another one like it.
Amen.
This is not for you. If you didn't enjoy this, then being a trial attorney is not for you. That doesn't mean being an attorney is not for you. It just means trying a case in court. I've got tons of friends that are lawyers who are scared to death to walk through those doors. They won't come in a courtroom, even though they're lawyers, because that's not what they like. That's not what they want to do.
They need to know if the injunction is to shut down the plant or just.
Yeah, the injunction is to shut down the plant.
Thank you.
What did I say? I'm sorry, I should confer with the parties before I answer the jury's question.
Since you guys brought the lawsuit.
Yeah, no, it was that they violated the permit and that they're a nuisance.
Those are the 2 claims.
Those are the 2 claims, and we're asking for an injunction for them to not violate the permit.
Exactly.
Okay, the injunction is to not violate the permit.
The injunction to shut down the plant, we would have lost, right?
Yeah.
No, that would be the
All right. Do y'all, including the witnesses out there, have any questions? Just raise your hand. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Isn't our injunction to stop them from getting the permits?
That's what I said.
We don't want them to pollute anymore.
Yeah, that's the section injunction is to get the tradable.
Well, they're almost ready.
If we get one of them, we got one of them.
What I'm trying to get you to do is to not focus on what they say when they come in here, because to me that's really not that important. What's important is that you learn from this, that you had fun doing it, or that it will help you make a decision about your future, about whether this is something you want to pursue, or you want to do something else.
Sorry,
I can tell you what Judge Hammond said is very correct. Only 10 to 15% of your attorneys go in the courtroom. Most of them never step foot in the courtroom.
That would not be me.
But I will tell you that I've had students who, after law and legal, said, I'm never going to be an attorney, and they're now practicing in front of Judge Hammond, so it's kind of humorous. But I will tell you that, yeah, it is a lot of work, okay? It is a lot of work. The very first trial you ever do is a nightmare. We didn't get to do that till our last year of law school. So can you imagine getting all the way to your 3rd year, sitting where you're sitting going, you've got to be kidding me. And then your first job is, oh, here's your first case going to court.
Yeah.
But you know so much more.
No, you don't. You don't know.
You don't know how to introduce an exhibit.
Because guess what, guys? Trial practice is not a requirement. Trial practice is not required for lawyers.
Let me tell you what law school does. Law school changes the way you think. Okay? You never think like a regular person again.
Okay, we got the jury.
My wife says I'm very pessimistic. Law school teaches you to examine an issue from every point and to figure out everything that can go wrong with it. Once you get out and start practicing, you make the same mistakes that y'all make. Practicing attorneys make these same mistakes because most law schools don't teach you how to do this.
And you don't really learn how to do this until you're in the courtroom.
It's not, now more law schools are requiring students to do clinics and what
Yes.
they call externships. But I will also tell you this, I read a great article in the New York Times, and it said more companies were willing to hire attorneys than MBAs. I can learn the law, I can learn business, but law school does. When you ask me to look at an issue, I look at it from I dissect it like a doctor, and that's just how I'm trained. And so that's why I could just sit there and look at things. I love being on our conflict resolution committee because I take policy and dissect it. And I mean, that's how I'm trained to look at it from every possible angle that we need to worry about or what we don't need to worry about. It's just the training that you get.
So why is so much emphasis put on mock trial? That's not even in
Because
law.
one of the things that it helps you is that one of our alumni, who is now a legal assistant in Sanford, basically walked into the interview and they said, have you ever done a trial notebook? And she started laughing and said, oh my God, Ms. Vonnegut made us do one in litigation, what do you want to know? And she is now their legal assistant. It's because you need this training, because even if you're not a trial attorney, your company gets sued, you need to know what exactly is going on procedurally. You need to know what that attorney is going to do. So, you know, even though my husband does bankruptcy law, there are days he's in bankruptcy court. It's very different from this, but, you know, he's prepping motions, and he never took trial practice. He refused to take it in law school, said, I'm never going in a courtroom. And his first job in the JAG court was he had to do prosecuting, and I laughed, you know. So, I mean, you never know. I think it's not only that, even if you don't go on to law school, the opportunity, the prep it gave you to think quickly on your feet, the ability to speak, the ability to prepare and get hit up with questions. I think it's the best experience, even if you don't go to law school. It teaches you how to work with people who are very different from you, different work ethics. I mean, all semester you got, he's not doing this. I mean, that's real life. That is real
All right,
life.
let's get our verdict from the
So
jury.
here's the jury.
Who speaks for this jury? If you please rise and just answer my questions either yes or no. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict on each issue?
Yes.
All right, issue one, what say the jury?
We believe that the jury, the jury believe that they are in violation of the Clean Air Act in Part C, Section 1, duty to comply.
Okay, this side comply. Issue two.
We believe the jury that they are in violation injunction and they should be awarded injunction to follow the permit.
All right, applaud again. All right, thank you very much. We have spent a little time critiquing, but I find that very often the best critique comes from the jury. So, is there anything that any of you would like to say to any of these students, the witnesses? Yes, sir.
So we have a lot of discussion, possibly unfounded now that we understand it, about what the second part of the ruling should be. There was whether it was to shut the plant down, whether it was.
I was confused about that too. That's all right.
Okay. And we were literally this close to give it to give that part of it to the defense, because I don't think you guys proved enough. I don't think you guys proved enough.
But when the question became, should they stop polluting?
Yeah, and that's that.
Yeah, I was confused about it too. In fact, when she came in here with the question, I gave an answer, and they said, no, that's not right.
Yeah, that was our main problem. I think once we understood what the question was, it was a lot easier to understand. But I you know, in any other way that question was stated or brought to trial, we would have awarded it to the defense.
All right, well, let me tell you, I came in this afternoon, I tried to have a little levity to try to put them at ease. I asked you to wear the juror badges with my name on it. I am not running for re-election anytime in the next 5 years, so I'm not campaigning. But I do want to lighten it up, because it is a little nerve-wracking for them to come in here and do this. I've also told them, and I don't mean any disrespect to y'all, but I've also told them not to focus on what your decision was, to focus on the process here. So if any of y'all have any questions, not questions, but critiques or comments about how they did the process, yes ma'am.
You know, if they were trying to prove things, don't tell me that 50% pollution comes from somewhere when you had 4 criteria. So I was trying to figure it out, and you kept talking about how Paleotech was over here and the wind blew this way. So if you're really trying to prove something, first be clear on what your criteria is that you're trying to talk about. You know, if pollutants isn't a good enough word, say SO2, NO2, PM and was report ozone, because ozone doesn't come from a coal-fired power plant, for instance. Neither does NOx. So those come from your mobile sources. So explore that stuff a little bit more, because I know you guys went in, and I know because Chris spent lots of time on this, I know, as well as you have this textbook on the on scrubbers. So, but there were a few things that I was thinking that I know you all aren't environmental, or some are, and some are. Plenty going beside you here. But you know, you may want to ask those sort of questions of somebody, you know, because we do have a whole environmental thing here. You might want to ask more questions. Because Leanne did a pretty good job, except you know I didn't like your 50-50 because it wasn't clear. And Ariel, because you know they're all, those four are all mine, and they all had 5, 4, 5, however many. So, but you know, some of these sort of things that you know dig a little more into some of the issues that you need to look at, what things mean, the definitions.
Okay, somebody else? Yes, sir.
I thought you guys all had fantastic stage presence. When we did ours last semester, it was, I don't believe it was that smooth necessarily. Nick, come back. And Steph, I loved you the whole time. You were getting a little like too bogged down in the stuff with the computer programming, but
because computers don't physically.
I love your enthusiasm.
Computer can't. Computer doesn't have legs and arms. You can take a sample.
Can't prove that.
Maybe it's a new
I think,
she's the one that came
just
up with
a general
it.
comment, and I'm just as guilty of it, using and a lot tends to.
Really?
No.
Did you notice that?
Nah. It tends to. It tends to affect the way people think of you and your speech patterns and the way that people take what you're saying that seriously.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank all our jurors, because Carla Fagan is one of our social work professors. I know you parents, I want to thank you for coming out and watching your children, your family members compete. And I want to say something, and I really mean this. The reason that this mock trial is such a success is because of the support I get from this jury. My fellow faculty members, you know, who come here, Sabrina and Amanda Briggs, and my fellow students who come, and Arlene Fields from the library, and Dr. Branson, they give their time up to be here. And that's just how Methodist University is. And to show you how even more important, I want to introduce Dr. Hancock, who's president of our university, who came today. And I just want to say that, honestly, you know, they worked really hard, but I want to thank all of these students for coming, to the faculty members for, you know, coming all the time. And, you know, it was a difficult issue. The reason I did this issue, and this is what's really nice about going to a small university. When I knew I was teaching this class will not be offered again for another 2 to 3 years. Dr. Branson said, can you do something with environmental compliance to give my students an opportunity to feel what it's like to be on the witness stand? Well, sure. So I found one. And then only 2 of her students signed up for the class. So then I had to recruit some of her environmental law students, and Ms. Briggs was nice enough to give me them to be expert witnesses. So a lot of these witnesses, their background's not environmental, they had to learn it. They're justice studies or cybercrime, I mean, so, but I will say that environmental compliance really worked hard with us. You know, Chris wasn't in the class, but he volunteered his time, Ariel volunteered her time. They're not getting, you know, they did this to help out, and I cannot thank them enough for giving up their time. Jordan is a new freshman who I said, Jordan, I need a witness, come do it. So Jordan got roped in, he's not in the class either. So I really want to thank all of you, because that's why this really works, is because of the time you give to what we do. So thank you, parents, because we thank you for letting your students come to Methodist. I think it's really, and I'm not saying this because Dr. Hancock's there, but it is such a good institution that probably next year my child will be attending Methodist University. And trust me, a lot of us feel that way, and we feel like your students, your children are our children, and we really care a lot about them, and we only want them to do well. So it doesn't bother me that somebody goes, I'm never doing this again. I'm your child. Yes, you are my child. Lost our child. But I want to thank all of you, because we really couldn't have done it. And I want to especially thank Judge Ammon, and just to thank you, a token of our appreciation. Dr. Hancock, would you like to say anything?
We got just a
couple minutes, I wanted to go to Dr. Hancock and see if he would say something for us and tell us what you thought about this.
Best students in America. No, I'm very proud of all of you. I only got to see the latter part of it, but I agree with everything. I really appreciated, Wendy, the comments you made. At an institution that really prepares you for whatever you're going to go into, you know, you're going to find a lot of things, challenges ahead of you. And the more you're prepared by the things you face, the better off you are, and the better you will thank the university later that you had these kinds of experiences. So, well done. Very proud of all of you.
Once again, I can't tell you how impressed I am every time. I mean, I've been doing this now, what, 6 years we've been doing this?
I've been doing it longer, but you've been doing it about 7 years.
7 years, okay?
Yes.
And I'm
that, I appreciate it.
always surprised, even though I know what to expect, I'm surprised about how professional, how well y'all do. And I have to keep reminding myself that I'm not at Campbell Law School or Elon Law School, that this is Methodist University and that most of you aren't going to become lawyers. But it's amazing to me how well prepared you are and how well you do. Maybe that speaks for the quality of lawyers that I see. I don't know.
Well, I think you all did a phenomenal job, and I know you're glad it's Friday. I want to thank the family members again for coming up. Before everybody leaves, I would like to get some pictures of Judge Ammon, so if I could have all the witnesses and the families coming up. Jury, you guys are the best, so thank you.